catches it. Steps up. Now will throw it for Monanga. And it's incomplete. Oh, it's tipped. It's intercepted. It was tipped into the hands of Hancock. And Hancock along the near sideline. He's got a blocker. One man to beat. Flags come flying in. And Hancock is into the end zone. Right now, touchdown, Ohio State.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
All right, Matt, and some spin cycles there. We've had some here. We got a big stage for Kansas with the ball up by 3, and Jason Bean wants to throw. Deep shot. Arnold! He is gone!
Oh my goodness.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
This is Price bringing it out, trying to return of his own. Now Jadarian Price turning on the Jets. 20-10 touchdown Notre Dame.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
As this is Sione Faki on the direct snap, and Faki around the outside. There it goes down the sideline. Sione Faki, touchdown Utah.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Here's Schrader in a huge hole. He'll take it in, and Missouri's got a 2-score lead.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Missouri still trying to get set from the end zone. Cook throws one. It's intercepted. House call for Major Burns. And LSU is going to escape Columbia with a win.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome in. Smokey is off today, so Craig and I will take you through the next 3 hours of just jocularity and sports talk. Thank you to everybody who's already in the chat. Thank you to everybody who will join the chat, and please tell them that I said that already, and that they don't need to worry about me thanking them now. But Craig, good to see you. There are some things we're going to get to here in the first segment. Grayson Grundhafer, our first guest at 3:45, and interested to hear from him on the, how he feels about. We mentioned it yesterday. We didn't get into it too much about the recruiting timeline moving up a little bit. We didn't have that much time to get into it because it's towards the end of the show, so I guess we can start off with it now. But there's a proposal in front of the coaches, and looks like, believe me, they'll probably all, if you vote against it, you've probably been at the sports bar across from the convention a little too long. But moving signing day up about 3 weeks, essentially, to before the transfer portal opens, and maybe even throwing in a summer signing period and trying to make the calendar work for coaches a little bit better. And, of course, the topic this week has been, about coaches leaving to go to the NFL. Dennis Dodd wrote a column about it today about how they're getting more and more worn out, and they're concerned about their quality of life, which is obviously as they should be. But this is maybe the first thing we've seen that might be an actual way to solve it a little bit, and make the calendar make sense a little bit, and moving it up before signing day, to me, or before the portal opens and before the conference championships, would make a very large difference in what they're doing.
Yeah, you'd hope so. I think there's no doubt that there is some effect on coaching in college football, that recruiting is taking its toll on some in the profession, and for some that means just it's not for you any longer. For some that means maybe you do want to look around. There's that big debate going on how much of a thing that is right now, college coaches going to the pros based on the numbers, and I've I feel like it's deja vu because I think I've said this just about every day for about 2 weeks. Anytime we've talked about this, I still don't know if it's really a thing or not, as far as being an actual trend of concern, as far as if you're a college official being worried about that becoming problematic for you. I don't think it's become problematic yet. I think there's a couple of instances where you can certainly go, oof, that's a sign that maybe it's heading in that direction, but not enough volume or movement yet, despite a Chip Kelly or a Jeff Hafley, to feel like that they're on the verge of like caving, and half the coaches are just going to be bolting. So it's not a big issue, but I'm glad that they're addressing it because it certainly has the elements of becoming a big issue quickly. And we know this is a sport that doesn't move very swiftly when it comes to rules and regulations. So the quicker that they can react to this to ensure that it doesn't become a bigger problem and something that actually is hurting the sport, I think is smart and definitely high priority. So it was good to hear that yesterday that that's in the works. And yes, it would be a signing day before conference championship weekend and the portal opening, as you mentioned. So that would be December the 4th, which is at least a couple of weeks earlier than it was this year. This year was just so late. And it just felt too late, and it felt like there was way too much going on. So if you're one of those teams in the conference title game, then you're still going to have a lot on your plate, and it doesn't really alleviate that too much. But, hey, you're also in the conference title game, so that's the breaks. I mean, you can't have it every way you want, I suppose, and go win a championship. And guess what? I don't think your recruiting is going to be too hurt by when the signing day is because you're winning big games and playing in big games. But, yeah, for those select schools, it'll still be a little bit heavy as far as the workload goes, but I think for everybody else, you can kind of collect your breath after the regular season just wraps up and get into signing day and lock that away and then start getting into your bowl prep or whatever it is that's on the horizon for you next. So I like the idea. I know that there's still a little bit of work to be done on making that official and what all that will look like, but it's too crazy in December right now, and so they needed to do something, and I'm glad that they're working on it.
Do you want it to be hard for 134 schools every single year or a rotating group of 12 to 14 every year? Yeah. Like that's it. Like you might have a year where you're like, oh damn, we are in the conference title game. We have the early signing day. Like we already knew some guys that were maybe going to the portal before that even happened. We're thinking about the playoff, like all these things. It goes hectic. But you trade that for, we are getting ready for the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I had 9 guys that jumped in the portal in like an hour and a half on a day. We're trying to get our high school kids signed.
Or we decided we all of a sudden just don't have interest in this tight end from El Paso because guess what? There's a tight end from Auburn that just jumped into the portal that we have a connection with. And so I think there's a multitude of reasons for it. You alleviate some of the workload on pretty much every team out there, again, save for those in the conference title games. But you also get some clarity on your roster before the portal opens up. You protect the high school and JUCO players so that they're not getting the raw end of the deal because now the portal's open and those players are more attractive. So I think you do provide a little layer of protection for some of those players because there is also a growing concern right now of how lost the high school recruiting is getting in the weeds of all the things that are going on, especially with the transfer portal. I don't think that's a huge concern just yet, but again, it's one of those things that you work on before it becomes a major issue and there's no turning back. So that makes sense. And there's still, like I said, some details to be worked out. I mean, they're talking about a summer signing period. So it's not just this. There's the possibility of them, going forward with the long talked about summer signing period. I know that that's not nearly as well received. I think there's more, at least like negative feedback towards a summer signing day that I've seen at least, and just the general conversations about it. But there are proponents for it, so that's something they're going to at least take a look at as well. So I'd be fine if we just go back to the one signing day of February, honestly. But because of the portal and all of that, I understand why you can't. And I remember being one of those, and it's kind of like the playoff now where, there's going to be a second signing day? That'll be awesome. That's going to be so great. And maybe it was for like a year or two, and then you quickly realize like, oh, damn, maybe we had it better. And I don't know if that's going to be how we are with the playoffs eventually, but certainly they've got to try and figure out something to just make this easier on everybody. It's starting with the players.
All right, as we start off with today in the legal world in college football, we should get a law firm to sponsor this. Brought to you by Thomas Mars, the state of Tennessee and the state of Virginia.
By the way, before we get into that, that was an interesting voice we heard in the open, old Jack Collinsworth.
Oh, yeah. So
won't be hearing those highlights again.
I put that in there for a reason. Yeah, because Jack Collinsworth out as the play-by-play voice at Notre Dame, and Dan Hicks, a legendary sportscaster. Dan Hicks going back in. Jason Garrett's going to stay, but I do think, like, part of the problem, and I think Jack Collinsworth is a fine broadcaster. I just think that job was a little bit too big for him right now. And he and Jason Garrett, like, I don't know if anybody else feels this way. I think this is one of the advantages that we have as a show and that we had as a play-by-play broadcast when all three of us were doing play-by-play together, is that we have three different personalities and three different voices. I felt Jack Collinsworth and Jason Garrett were the same guy quite a bit of the time.
Yeah.
And so it never, like, you know, if you think about Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, or, you know, some of the, like, Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson, although, you know, I'm not a huge Gary Danielson fan, but he knows his stuff. But, like, more of it's a personality thing, and as opposed to a, like, I don't think he knows anything. But you have those differences, and it, like, creates, you know, like it's like listen to a band like Simon and Garfunkel, like, you know which one sing and win, right? And then I know that's a terrible, lame example, but it just sounds different as opposed to, you know, this guy with a pretty, like, this voice that's here and this voice that's here. I prefer it, like, to be, you know, more melodic, I guess.
Yeah, it was pretty, I guess, safe. It was a very safe broadcast, it felt like, with those two. You weren't going to get a lot of controversy. And, yeah, they were kind of similar in, I guess, their tones or just analysis, or I guess it's the way it sounded. I don't know, I'm having a hard time, I guess, describing it as well. But, yeah, it seemed like that was maybe a little bit too early of an opportunity. And so wasn't surprised to see that yesterday, actually. But was sitting there listening to the Open and heard that, and I was like, oh, yeah, we're not going to be hearing that call anymore.
No.
So that was a short stint, and we'll see what's in the cards for him in the future. I know a lot of people had a problem just because of who his dad is and all of that. I think he'll be fine in the long run, but it did feel like, man, that's kind of it's a big job early on.
Yeah.
For a guy that we aren't really all that familiar with. We're more familiar with his...
And he took over for Mike Tirico.
Yeah,
like,
and
that's the other thing. It's like, yeah.
You're filling some big shoes there, so yeah, that's not a total shock, and most of the feedback that I've seen is very much of like, yeah, that's a good move for Notre Dame football and for NBC. So yeah, that'll be something to I guess see as one of the other changes heading into next season. But just wanted to touch on that since I heard that in the Open there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I put it. I'm glad you noticed it. Sometimes I put things in the Open for reasons known only to me. But good catch there, Craig. Absolutely. All right, so. Tennessee and Virginia had a joint filing of an preliminary injunction against the NCAA to freeze NIL rules while this is going on in response to the NCAA's findings and investigation into Tennessee and their NIL collective. Well, guess who won so far? Like the first round, and this thing is not over, but first round goes to who, Craig, if you had to put money on it?
I'd say not the NCAA.
Once again, the NCAA takes a loss in this one. The states had argued that NIL rules must be suspended immediately because recruits are losing leverage at the ability to negotiate their fair market value in the NIL space, and UT's reputation is stained by the NCAA's unfair investigation focused on NIL rules and enforcement, and it is hereby ordered, effective immediately, that defendant the NCAA, its servants, agents, employees, and all persons active in or participation with the NCAA are restrained and enjoined from enforcing the NCAA interim NIL policy, the NCAA bylaws, or any other authority to the extent such prohibits student-athletes from negotiating compensation for NIL with any third-party entity, including but not limited to boosters or a collective of boosters, until a full and final decision on the merits is in the instant action. So that means that there are now, currently as it stands, no enforceable NIL rules.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia part of this as well. I don't know. I don't know that I'm really celebrating this too much, honestly. I don't ever really feel bad for Tennessee either. Like, they broke rules, and we were supposed to suddenly feel sorry for them because the NCAA was painted as the big bad bully, and I don't know. I just never bought that line at the time. But, I mean, good for them. Nothing against Tennessee or Virginia. Understand why they were pursuing that. But I do feel like we kind of got like the the media workshopping how all this came to be and why exactly Tennessee was involved to begin with. But, that's obviously monumental news and another loss for the NCAA in court. I don't know that there's an entity in the world that's wasted more money on lawyers, and I'm sure there is attached to government or something like that absolutely has. But just the amount of money set on fire by the NCAA when it comes to these multitude of court cases and – yeah, just another loss for them. They are the Harlem Globetrotters, but I don't even know. That seems like it's too complimentary.
No, it's
Washington Generals.
The Washington Generals. Yes, thank you. That's definitely who I was thinking of instead.
Who plays the Savannah Bananas? That's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. So that's kind of what they are. Just the team that shows up to get beat in whatever the situation is, especially when it comes to a courtroom. And so now 0 rules on NIL, which is absolutely what I was rooting for. No, not really. It's not at all what I was rooting for. But, hey, for the rich, they'll get richer because now there's really nothing stopping you. And I guess for those who have been holding back because of rules or whatever that maybe aren't who we consider to be the rich, but now we're going to be able to really open up the pocketbooks. Good for them. Good for the players. They'll certainly benefit from not having any restrictions on the money that they can make. But I don't think or feel like right now this is great for the sport. Like we should all be celebrating this news unless you're somebody who just loves the chaos and wants absolutely no rules whatsoever. I'm not one of those people. I'm also not a stick in the mud that feels like everything should be law and order and black and white or vanilla and no chocolate or strawberry, anything like that. I think you need to have some different flavors. But yeah, I don't know grand scheme how I feel just yet on this being positive news overall, but if you don't like the NCAA, it certainly is. So we'll see what comes of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and look, just to put it in, there are two separate issues at hand now here for the NCAA. They have to decide whether they can continue to push their investigation against Tennessee and whether they can continue to try to enforce the NIL policy in which they have already tried to enforce it. So, just another sign here that the system doesn't work in the way that it's set up right now, and you better stop trying to figure out ways. That's the only problem I had with the NCAA going after Tennessee and Florida and these schools like this. I know they had the rules was we knew this was going to end this way, and instead of putting your energy into this, why don't you put your energy into figuring out ways to make it work in the modern context? Like, that's where I think this is the silly part.
Because they're greedy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all greed.
Yeah, you can't. And look, I promise you, their attorneys are telling them, like, look, this is probably what's going to happen. And they're like, well, we got to fight it. And you're like, all right, well, here's the billable hour sheet.
Yeah, I think there's concern for some schools that they may not be able to swing it anymore if it's this way. I don't know necessarily, certainly not on a case-by-case basis, but, I'm sure there's smaller schools that don't really love the idea because they don't have the resources, but I also know that Tennessee and Virginia aren't really worried about those types of schools. Everybody's got to worry about themselves, so those who want to keep competing at a certain level will find ways to do so, and it maybe means that it's a bit more stressful than if you're in a cozy conference with cozy TV deals, but for the future of college football, it's something, you better get used to, and I don't know how you haven't already prepared yourself at this point. Like, if you're caught with your hands down your pants right now, then you all should be fired. How could you not be on the chopping block if you're still sitting there with your finger in your nose, just having hoped for the last 2, 3, 4 years that the government was going to swoop in and save you? I know I'm not playing life that way. I'm not going to set myself up to where I'm just going to hope and pray that the government comes and solves whatever my issue is for me. So that's what the NCAA has been doing for quite a while now, and just hoping, I guess, and praying that some time and some place in some court they'll finally get a victory. But today's not that day, and this is another major blow. So I don't know where it goes from here. I'm sure we'll see all of that kind of summarized in the hours that will follow this story. It's just breaking, so you're seeing a lot of the beat reporters are just now kind of getting onto the part of, putting the press release and those types of things out there. But yeah, unpacking all this and what it all means will be very interesting, but not surprised. Congrats to Tennessee and Virginia on their victory. How monumental this will be, again, remains to be seen. But yeah, the whole hoping for the government plan I don't know if that's the only option that they had. I know that it wasn't. The other option is to go and do what they don't want to do because, again, greed and resources for some and whatever other multitude of reasons. But I don't know how you're not eventually just going to be shoved into a room and at gunpoint told, like, if you want this sport to live, you have to do it this way. This whole dragging it out in court is not going to work. You'd think you'd know that with your 0-12 record or whatever it is at this point, or 1-11 or whatever they end up or they are at this stage. But collective bargaining and contracts and all that, I know there's a lot opposed to that idea, but I just don't see any other way around it at this stage. I mean, if you want to have any type of real rules and system in place that keeps everybody somewhat on the same level, like, you're not going to be able to make everybody make the same money anymore. Those days are way out the window, and that's been gone for forever. But if you want it to all be under, like, the same umbrella in theory, you're kind of running out of time and choices here.
Yeah.
So you might as well just, like, I don't want to hear you bitching about, we want a spot in this new playoff when you're refusing to play by the rules that others are inevitably going to play by. And I understand, again, if you don't have the resources to do that, that's one thing, and that's something you're going to have to figure out. But the idea of you're going to somehow eventually one day just wake up and get around all that by just refusing to budge, well, that's clearly not going to work. So if we're here a year from now and there's NCAA lose another court case, I don't know if they have another year to lose any more court cases, honestly. You've done all of it, so make a move.
So I'll give a simple life story and anecdote for this. They're spending money anyway, and they're losing money anyway, right?
Yeah.
So your dad, Smokey, had a Tahoe for at least 1,000 years. There were 6 billion miles on that car.
Yep.
He was having to have it fixed all the time. And every time I know, because we would ride together to things in his Tahoe, traveling at near the speed of sound, weaving through traffic, we would say, like, why didn't you just go get a new car? And he's like, well, I really like not having a car payment. You're like, yeah, but every 3 months you have to pay $1,400 to get this thing fixed. So you do have a car payment. It's just you're paying for an old car and not a new one. So the NCAA right now is paying for their old car that does not work. That's what they are doing. They are repeatedly throwing good money after bad, or whatever you want to say, but, like, trying to make sure that their old Tahoe keeps running because, well, right now we don't have a car payment. Buddy, you do. Like, every time, like, and not only that, like, every time something breaks on this car that is the NCAA, like, it's more expensive to fix it because it's more antiquated, and to make it work with the new stuff, you have to do all these different things, or you got to go find, like, an engine for a 2001 Tahoe that just just move on. Get a new car and move on because you are spending money on something that's not going to last.
Yeah, I've been paying my car down pretty good, and I'm still a ways away, but I was like, man, it's going to be like, if I can just pay this off in, like, the next 10 months, then I won't have a car payment. And then I started thinking about it more, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work because I'm inevitably, it's just going to be like a 12-year-old car by the time I do, and then I know it's going to start falling apart, and the electrical system's going to go out, and so, yeah, that's not really the move. Maybe that works for, like, a little while, but you're talking about, he was doing it for, like, years.
Yeah.
Like, just asking to have it die on the side of the road, but you saved a couple $100 here and there. And I get that, but yeah, it came to a point where it's like, dude, just get a new car already. Like, this is ridiculous. And for the NCAA, they need to get a new course of action because now there are no restrictions on transferring. There are no restrictions on NIL. So what you thought was already kind of a circus is more of a circus than it ever was to begin with, because now we know, we don't just think or wonder, like, we know the courts are saying, you have no argument here. You have absolutely no argument to restrict them from transferring as much as they want to. You have no argument to prevent them from negotiating deals. You have no argument to cap them monetarily. You have no argument, no leg to stand on whatsoever. So, I don't know what the greater group mindset is when it comes to the NCAA and what they think they're ultimately going to accomplish here. Or maybe they're just so out of answers and out of any other alternatives that they have no choice but to just keep on losing court battles and hope that one day they're going to get lucky. And that's just not a winning strategy, obviously.
The thing is that they were lucky for a long time.
Oh, they were, yeah.
That nobody came along and said, hey, does the Sherman Antitrust Act apply here? Because it feels like it should. Does this law apply here? Because it feels like it should. And when they were proposed that, and you said, hey, for example, like, how is this not a violation of antitrust laws? And the NCAA comes back with, because we say it's not. Like, well, why do you say it's not?
Yeah.
Well, that's our whole thing. Like, this is the rules that we believe in. It doesn't matter what you believe in. It matters what the law of the land is and what we say is legal as the United States government, and that's where they're running up against the wall. We'll take a break right here. When we come back, this next segment will be dedicated, because I know you guys are talking about it in the chat too, but some of the interesting things that have come out here in the last couple days in FSU versus ACC versus now ESPN a little bit. ESPN says FSU might have committed a felony, and I will tell you, I don't know if they have or not, but this also, I'll tell you, we might not see any kind of discovery in this if they're that worried about one little detail, or not one little detail, but a detail coming out about their TV contracts with the ACC. This is 365 Sports.
Are you ready to conquer the road in style? Well, folks, you asked for it, and now you've got it. It's Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco, and we've got some deals just for you. Get ready to roll with 0% financing for a whopping 72 months on the 2024 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Star. But wait, there's more. We're slashing prices on all the 2023 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab four-wheel drives. Get a jaw-dropping $15,000 off MSRP. Let's show some love to our brave first responders out there. As a token of our appreciation, first responders get an extra $500 off. And let's not forget the Ram 1500, the most luxurious and technologically advanced Ram 1500 ever. So don't miss out on these incredible deals during Ram Truck Month. Swing by Allen Samuels in Waco today and drive home in the truck of your dreams. But hurry, because these offers won't last long. Ram Truck Month is happening now at Allen Samuels.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. Smokey off today. And he'll be back on Monday. But Craig, yesterday I got emails and texts all over the place from people about a part of the case that the ACC has filed in North Carolina against FSU. FSU has filed a case against the ACC in Florida. They're both trying to fight this fight on their home turf, and we'll see how that ends up. But one of the things, and when we had Bill Farley on last week or earlier this week on Monday, he's a guy who has done, in his research, has gotten all these Freedom of Information Act, requests fulfilled. But he even said he knows that he'll probably never see most of the discovery in this case because it'll probably get settled because all three parties involved in this, which would be ACC, ESPN, and FSU, probably don't want all this out in the world so that people can see it. And recently, in the ACC's filing, ESPN is alleging that FSU may have committed a felony in releasing a trade secret. I believe that trade secret is that the ACC's contract can be nullified in 2027 by ESPN when FSU released that in their legal filing in their suit against the ACC in Florida. Now, this is interesting in that, just 4 days ago, we had Bill Farley on the show, and he said that he believed that this would eventually become a three-pronged negotiation for the exit fee between the ACC, Florida State, and then ESPN, because ESPN is named in this, and they have interest in it either way. I find it very interesting in that now you have, a third party that's probably now completely entered the fray in this, as where they were a little bit on the outside and waiting to see. But now saying Florida State might have committed a felony by saying that, I'm not sure that's true or not. Again, neither of us up here are lawyers. But I
don't even think sometimes the lawyers are even dead on 100% certain about some of this stuff, to be perfectly honest. Yeah.
And then the fact they're saying this to me means like, we would like this to stop now and let's start negotiating, because the more that comes out, so if Florida State files discovery request, meaning like we would like all of this stuff out in the open, all the correspondence, that means ESPN, like everything that they did and everything that was said is going to be out there. And whether that's legally damning or publicly damning or just, well, this is like they said, a trade secret, they don't want any of that out there. So just appears to me that, it's a small notch in Florida State's corner, because this could drag on for longer than we even realize.
Oh, yeah.
I think that there are people out there because, they've heard the reports that as long as Florida State tells the ACC by August 1st that they're leaving next year, that they'll be out, and so on and so on. The only way I think that we see that reasonably is that if this accelerates down the line, which it could. These things either go super fast or super slow. There's really not medium pace when it comes to the law. Like, this is going along exactly at the pace we thought. It either gets really fast or really slow. So we don't know where that's going to go. But I do think when you talk about the ACC, the future of the ACC, that little nugget is very interesting in where Florida State's future is in it, and how this might have gotten a little bit quicker based on the fact that ESPN needs to tighten up their part of it too.
Yeah, I guess the most recent development prior to that was just the confirmation that they could buy their way out, right? That was already kind of known, but I guess it was just established that they had that opportunity, even though it's a price tag that they have no interest in actually paying. So that alone, even if there wasn't this other part, would lead you to believe that the best course of action for Florida State would be to negotiate, because I don't think you want to pay, what would it, like $500+ million, close to 600. I don't think, even with all the investments and routes that you could go in terms of financing, that's something you want to do if you don't have to. So there was that, and now this. And so, it's another reason why this seems like the best path forward for both parties is probably to go behind closed doors and settle their differences there versus dragging this out in court. But if you're the ACC and you're not willing to give up that easily, and I guess if you feel like you can drag this out or you can possibly win this at the end, then why capitulate? Yeah, this was very interesting, though, from the standpoint of just what are those trade secrets? I mean, what would those possibly be that ESPN is so concerned about? And I know the quick reaction, especially for those who are following the story quite closely, is that they're worried about how, like, there's some collusion, right? Jack Swarbrick's son and his involvement in negotiating the TV deal, and that's what everybody thinks the smoking gun is, basically. So I could see where, yeah, something like that would be reason for ESPN to not want to have everything divulged. But, yeah, who else or what else could that possibly entail? I don't know. And so, yeah, this is all very interesting, and I'm just kind of along for the ride here, because I don't know what's coming up next. I don't know a timeline. I do know that it just feels like there's no way that this can be repaired. But I also don't think there's any reason for the ACC right now to rush this and allow Florida State and inevitably what would then open the door to other parties to leave without really making them have to, like, walk through the mud a pretty good ways, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because they're even if, like, they go and, all right, we agree to a deal, and then we'll go grab, like, Tulane or whatever, and the theories that are put out there about how they would still survive, like, I don't know how valid that really is, that mutant conference.
There's two factors at play in that, right? In that the contract says that as long as they stay above this threshold, right, ESPN has to pay them that much money and keep the yearly payments the same. The problem for the ACC now lies in the fact that in 2027, ESPN can look at it and go, yeah,
which they could very well do, or want to go a different route altogether. If all of a sudden you look up in 2027 and there's no Florida State and no Clemson and potentially no North Carolina and whatever combination you want to throw out there. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's very interesting and would love to be a fly on the wall in the ESPN and ACC meetings or phone calls where they're kind of setting their strategy up, because not knowing what those trade secrets are, but knowing that's obviously a touchy subject that they want to fight back on, that does add a little spice to what is already a very spicy story. So we know that Florida State's got the route of just paying a huge chunk of money. That's not the route they want to go down. We know that they feel like there's a smoking gun there with the negotiations and how all this came to be originally. And now we know that those negotiations, well, the ACC doesn't want those to be public, nor does ESPN. So, yeah, that just makes you even more curious about how all that came together and how nefarious maybe that it was, and how much of an argument that maybe Florida State does have in this whole thing. It's hard to tell, because when lawyers usually talk favorably about their stance. And so we get these lawyer statements, and I read one, I'm like, from the Florida State side, it's like, yeah, I think Florida State's got a good case here. And then I read the ACC side, I'm like, I don't know. I think the ACC's got some good defense, though. So I don't know. I don't know in the wash what side has the more favorable lineup of actions right now. But, yeah, this is getting even more litigious, and just you kind of feel the pressure building here on when and where and how this is all going to explode, and could be soon, could be a couple years down the line, but there is at least a little bit of a ticking clock. That feels that way for sure. So, yeah, that's interesting, and I would think that the longer this goes, the best bet would be to just go sit down at a table, much like the Pac-12 did eventually, and just settle enough of the courtroom stuff, or, like the Pac-2 or the Pac-12 conference, not against Oregon State, I guess the 10 schools of you kind of lost one, and then you're like, let's not do this again. Let's just go ahead and wrap this all up. And I know that's the hope for most out there. From Florida State's standpoint, certainly that's your best out, is to get something negotiated down and then get what you want in the end. But from the ACC standpoint, is that the best option for them as well? Or is that just going to further hasten the ultimate demise of this conference? I don't know. It's hard to know what exactly is 100% truthful and what's not when it comes to the contracts and what people are saying.
Yeah, and I think some of that, though, like the Swafford stuff and all that, the ACC's best defense in this, to me, seems that they can just say, well, you guys agreed to this. This is what you signed. This is what you agreed to. And the moving target on this for Florida State is none of us were here when that happened. This is a different leadership. We want different things. we think this contract should not have been agreed to, and this restricts the state of Florida. This is where it's gonna be interesting. This restricts our ability to make as much money as we can, much like the NIL injunction that just happened with Tennessee and Virginia. So like those three things will be kind of the little targets for FSU, and the ACC can be like, look, it doesn't matter that in 2016 that you had a different president, a different athletic director, a different booster club president, and coaches, and everything's different. Like all that's changed. The rules of college football have changed. These other TV deals have happened. It does not matter that all happened because you didn't have the foresight to see that in 2016, and you signed the deal. You were with everybody then, and you should know that can't just change because you decided that all that could have happened, but since you didn't know it would, you just decided to sign it this way. So either way, it's going to be tough. So
yeah, it feels like there's definitely momentum on Florida State's side. I hate all the clickbaity kind of crap though of like it's official, they're like moving on, and it's like no, we're not there yet. We might be getting closer, but it's not like inevitable and on the horizon. I tried to make this argument about a totally different subject. I won't revisit that, but here we are. And
here's what is true. Florida State, at a point in the future to be determined, will not be in the ACC.
Right. I think we can all agree on that.
That is their organizational goal.
Yes.
To be out of it.
And it might be 10 years, it might be a year, but they're not going to be in there in 20 years.
They don't have a for sure home. They don't have a for sure outcome. They have plans, clearly, that we went over those with Bill Farley on Monday. Like they have a strategy to it, but how quickly this gets done is to be determined. Mm-hmm. Again, nothing surprises me in realignment is that we could wake up like sometime next week and this could be over. Yeah. And I would be less surprised than I would have been 5 years ago about these things. Or, again, wouldn't surprise me if that next year at this exact same time, like there might be some like minor movement in this, but there's like a story coming out going, well, another little victory for Florida State and a victory for the ACC in this one. And like, this is where we are. And we're kind of one step forward, one step back, and kind of in the same spot. Like it's just where it is. That's none of it surprises me when it comes to any kind of realignment mumbo jumbo.
No, nor should it at this stage. I mean, it's also very unpredictable. So yeah, everybody's just, I guess, along for the ride when it comes to this story and the various others that are similar to it or have similar outcomes on the landscape. So yeah, this is the big one now. This is the one that could start the whole next wave and really the reshaping of the entire sport of college football, because you automatically assume that they're getting out and they're going to one of two places. It seems like the Big Ten would be the favorite right now, would it not? Just amongst the conversation that's out there.
Oh, yeah.
But, once that door's open, then who else is jumping through that door? And then what's left over on the other side of that? And how many teams are left standing in the ACC? And then what do they have still available? And what does their future contract look like? And how does ESPN view them? And so there's a reason why it's fascinating, much like the Pac-12 thing when – getting shouted down about how, like, pay attention here. Like, this is a big deal. No, BS, that's bull, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, but, like, just keep watching it, and this could be simple and get, clean finish, and the Pac-12 just goes about its business, but if certain things fall a certain way, this could get really ugly, and it's the same thing with this. Like, They could be a clean finish to this, a clean separation, or an ugly staying together for a little while longer. But regardless, whatever happens there's going to be a tsunami effect one way or the other. And so, yeah, this is a huge case that does not have a timeline on it right now, but you feel the urgency certainly coming out of Tallahassee. And so does that hasten things and we get a settlement sooner rather than later? I don't know, but I think you've got to feel pretty good about where you are if you're Florida State right now, because it does seem like you're having some compelling arguments or some things that are involved, like the secrecy around these trade secrets, if you will, that lead you to believe that, okay, there's something nefarious going on here. Maybe that'll help us out in the long run. But there's also, the various state laws, and so how does that come into play as far as what is dubbed a trade secret? What could be potentially off limits? I don't know. I won't wade into those waters. But yeah, this is a fascinating case that's really been. Where are we months wise on this? Like, we're a few months down the road now at this point. So,
August was really when it got I guess in the spring, that was the
7 months.
Yeah,
7
spring
months.
was the appetizer of there's the big teams in the ACC
Noise
that
creeping
are
up. Yeah,
we don't really like this revenue distribution model, especially when we found out that the schools that nobody watches on television are going to get $90 million.
Right.
And, we have very solid ratings, especially, the ratings when Clemson plays Georgia. I mean, yes, a lot of that's Georgia, but also that's Clemson. They're huge. We shouldn't be relegated to this spot. And then, it trickles down of all right, well, we'll do this thing for you. We'll make it incentive-based. And all right, I guess we're going to vote for that. We're not going to say no to more money, but you're closing the gap here by about $5 million when we're talking about closing it by $40 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, well, we don't have $40 million. We know, that's why we brought it up. And
right,
then it's now gotten to the point of Florida State has taken the angry tact as where you've got 2 or 3 others just waiting in the wings going, all right.
Let's see how this plays out.
Let's see how this goes. Your lawyers, you can spend the money on the lawyers, and then we'll do ours after you win or lose or whatever.
Yeah, basically, I think that's basically what's going on. And yeah, I mean, you had all the expansion. I mean, if you're Florida State, how thrilled are you about Stanford and Cal and SMU? I don't know, but that all kind of coincided together. So that Big 12 Pac situation certainly led into this next phase. And so ACC's on the clock, and so are the Noles and their counterparts we just referred to are kind of sitting back and waiting right now. But big win for one of those ACC schools there in Virginia as a part of that lawsuit along with Tennessee. And we'll see how that extends around the country and has an effect on NIL as a whole. But this one right here is the big one when you look at the concept of super leagues. This is a story where if it did fall a certain way, you can see how that feeds into that type of a narrative or that thought that's what we could be looking at, because you do have then a Florida State now joining another one of the 2 big conferences, and then most likely 2 or 3, or at least one other brand joining them somewhere, and further weakening the ACC, which is further weakening the non-power or Super 2 schools, as I coined that last year, and I think it's starting to kind of become a thing more, the Super 2. So yeah, this is fascinating. I don't really love legal stuff, but this little Florida State ACC back and forth has been very interesting to follow from afar and read just some of the coverage of it. So what would the pay, what was the estimate now? It's they'd have to pay $100 million, is that right? Yeah. Versus paying $400+ million. Yeah. So that's much more doable. But yeah, if you can get that whittled down even further and find an easier way out, certainly that's what you'd want to do if you're Florida State. So yeah, this is going to be a story for a while until it isn't, and that's the hard thing to call, is when will this no longer be a story? But it doesn't seem to be anytime soon.
All right, when we come back, Grayson Grunhafer, SicEm365.com. Then we'll have Josh Neighbors. And then at 5 o'clock, we've got Pat Nunley, Baylor Radio Network, on Baylor versus Houston. Maybe, one of the top 3 games in the country this season, or this weekend, that's going to be right down the street at the Foster Pavilion. This is 365 Sports.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
By the way, just talking in the chat room, they were like, FSU's not a great academic institution. I can tell you, it was very middle of the road when I went there. Mm-hmm. But in the last 20 years, they have decided that, maybe we should put some of this money the state just throws at us.
Maybe we should play school.
Yeah, maybe we should play school a little bit more. And it was a fine school. It wasn't like a bad school. It wasn't, but they've done more. And Kyle Visser said, Paul, did time make your junior college diploma become a diploma from the Oxford of America? No, but I do like the zing. Thank you very much there, Kyle. No, it's just, we... if you watched our shows that we did in Orlando, we had a special intern there who might come back with us. I need to work that out. But she was there, and she goes to Alabama, but she wanted to go to FSU. And the reason she wound up not going to FSU is it's become super hyper competitive to get in there. And they put even people in the state in a waiting list, which was not the case in 1998 when they I applied, and a month later, they called up and holy crap, really? Come on. So things have been a little bit different, and it changes across all the way. Grayson Grunhaver, Sikkim365.com, joins us now. And Grayson, yesterday announced that the coaches are working on some adjustments to the recruiting calendar that would at least move the early signing day up until the first week in December, before the conference championship games and before the transfer portal officially opens. What are your thoughts on that, especially when it comes to roster building and the way that this will flow a lot easier than it was if this does go through?
Right. I mean, I think it's a good thing. And I think, honestly, this year, it was just one of those years this year where it just became a huge talking point because of I just felt like there were so many more negatives about the fact that it was so late in the calendar, and it really did not flow well at all. And it led to a lot of problems with, various things. I mean, whether you want to talk about tampering or if you want to talk about, just the calendar and just the fact that, some kids aren't able to play in, certain games because they're having to look to the transfer portal and things like that. So I do think moving it up makes a lot of sense. I think, right now it's still an imperfect science. I don't think any of this has been completely figured out. I mean, whether you're talking the transfer portal or, other things like NIL, obviously a lot to still figure out and adjust there. But I do think they're at least trying to make an effort to see what what tweaks and what changes could do and see if they're positive. And I think in this case, it will end up being a positive thing for the players, the coaches, and for all the programs recruiting various transfers.
All right, thanks, Grayson. That's all with Baylor and college sports that we've got to talk about, huh? Nothing else going on with Baylor football this week. All right, I guess you're going to probably have a pretty lengthy response here. I guess there's no way to kind of unpack this piece by piece, Grayson, because so much happened. But in the span of 24, 48 hours, Baylor went from having a complete football staff that had been reworked this offseason and finally settled in to suddenly having 3 vacancies as they lost their inside linebackers coach and also their offensive line coach, who they just hired, and Chris Kapolovic, both to Alabama, and then also lost Dennis Johnson, their D-line coach, to the Baltimore Ravens. So 3 guys gone in the span of a day or so. They're now 2/3 of the way through the hires, though. Jamar Chaney, we learned late last night into this morning from Western Kentucky, will take over inside linebackers, and Mason Miller from Tarleton State taking over the O-line. So that leaves just the D-line. So there's the stage set up, man. However you want to unpack all that, what are your thoughts on the sudden departures and how Aranda and company have responded and what all this means in the long run?
Right. So, I mean, I guess going piece by piece in this, losing Coach Cap to Alabama was kind of the first domino, right? And that happened Sunday night going into Monday morning. And you it was one of those things that was a little bit unprecedented for anyone that follows this, just because he'd only been at Baylor, hired 2 months before this decision, but really had only been at Baylor for a month or a month and a half, like not long at all. And so you kind of put that together and you're just thinking there's no way that this is going to happen, but it did. Sunday night, the team was informed, team started to know and figure out that was going to happen. Monday morning, it's announced by everyone that he's going to Alabama to join Kalen DeBoer's staff, and you're like, okay, well, that's not ideal for a variety of reasons, especially because, I mean, guys, really, when you look at Baylor over the last, really since our Browse left, the teams, in my eyes, that have been the best teams during that stretch, when you look at 2019, 2021, were because their offensive line play was good. And when it hasn't been good, the teams have been bad. And when the offensive line has been terrible, we've seen, the effects of that. When you look in the 2020 season during COVID and a variety of reasons, that offensive line was really bad. And then last year's offensive line struggled as well. And you saw the results, 2 really, really bad seasons. So they have to get that figured out. And so losing a coach like that who just started building these relationships, that's really, really difficult. And, I think for a lot of these players, we also have to remember, there was another coach that left before Coach Cap took the job, and that was Eric Mateo. So these guys have had 3 offensive line coaches in the matter of, 3 months, really. And so that's really, really a tough thing, I think, for these players relationship-wise. And then you move forward to, Monday afternoon, Alabama misses out on their top target at the linebacker coach position. He's going to Tennessee. And so Christian Robinson immediately, it seems like, accepts the job offer. So we find that out. That one's tough for the recruiting side of things, the relationship. He'd only been at Baylor for a year, but it really felt like this 2025 class that was coming up was going to be a really, really special one for the linebacker position because of Christian Robinson's relationship, just the way he's been recruiting. And I know a lot of the players really respect him, and the staff really respects him as well. But he's an SEC guy, and I think in the long run, this was always going to happen. It's just probably a little bit earlier than most of us expected. And then you fast forward to the Dennis Johnson thing, and, we just talked about Christian Robinson was at Baylor for a year. Coach Cap was at Baylor for 2 months, but Dennis Johnson was really a staple for this program on the defensive line, and a guy that a lot of these players respected. A lot of these players just, really, really had a great relationship with him. And I would say that he's done a really good job. I think this past year, was tough. The veterans didn't quite live up to the expectation. But I think in general, he's done a really nice job. And that's going to be a tough loss. Obviously, he's going to the NFL. That's great. But I know for the players specifically, that's a really, really tough one for his position group. So I'm fascinated to see, what direction they go there. As far as the hires they made, Jamar Chaney, up and comer, coaching linebackers, which also Dave Rand is going to be coaching. So you put that together, and I think you're going to have a good recruiting duo there. And obviously on the field, you feel really good about what Dave Rand is going to bring to the table for the linebackers. And I think Jamar Chaney, that energy, that youth, the experience that he has is going to pay a huge dividends for that spot. I think they'll be a good group. And then offensive line, you mentioned Mason Miller getting the job. He's got a lot of experience in the spread air raid scheme with his time with Mike Leach. And so I'm very intrigued to see how that works out. But in general, he's got a lot of experience in this kind of offense, more experience than Coach Cap did. So who knows? I think that it could be a really, really good fit. Obviously, you're not getting your top guy because he just left Alabama. But I do think you look at the resume, you look at the track record, and I think I feel pretty good that Mason Miller is going to put together a competent, if not really good, offensive line going into the spring and of course, the 2024 season.
Grayson, on it, like I guess the negative part of this would be that you're kind of going along here. It's almost March. You've got spring coming up, and you've got to integrate these guys into the staff pretty quickly. Do you think that will at least make it a little bit of a bumpier ride as spring football goes on?
I mean, I think it's going to be a spring of adjustment, and I think that it's going to be a spring of learning a lot of new things. And I think that, I do believe that, Jake Spavital and Dave Aranda, Jake on the offensive side and Dave Aranda on the defensive side, probably already have everything kind of set for what they want to do and what they want to be about at various positions going into the spring. And so I'm pretty sure that the coaches that they hire here are I think they know that. And so I think the good news is I think the coach and the players are going to be on the same page when it comes to what they're going to try to get done on the field going into spring ball. And I think that's key. Now, the relationship side of things, that's going to take time, and it always does. You're not just going to be able to walk into a room and immediately, you have everyone's trust, everyone believes in you, everyone's excited to play for you. That takes time, and that's going to be something that is going to be earned, and it's going to grow throughout spring football. But I do think spring is the perfect time for that. And we see these kind of hires happen very often where guys come in the spring and they go in and then build a good relationship, and that translates into the summer and fall. So luckily there's time here, and Dave Aranda wasted no time in going out and finding his guys for these positions. I've been extremely impressed with how quickly he was able to backfill those positions and find guys that he really, really liked to take over. And now just got to get them into Waco and get them, meeting the players in their room, and hopefully it translates well. But I do think it does add a little variable of uncertainty, which is, I think, what you're alluding to, Paul.
How much uncertainty is there in regards to what they'd already done in the transfer portal now? Is everything kind of locked in and tucked away, or does this kind of open up things once again?
So from my vantage point, I think everything is pretty locked in as far as going through spring football. Now, there is another transfer portal window after that. And so if guys, go into this time period and things don't, go well or they're not happy, then I mean, there's going to be an opportunity to transfer, come the summertime after spring football. So there's a chance that happens, but I do think most of these guys are going to be ready to go for spring, and the coaches are going to get an opportunity to coach them, teach them, mentor them, and gain that trust. And then we're going to see what happens after that. Now, I will say, Baylor, in my eyes, I'm expecting there to be attrition on this roster going into after spring football when guys kind of see where they are on the depth chart. But I think for the transfers, I think Baylor is still in a really good position to keep those guys. And then, of course, with the new, the later transfer portal window, they'll also have an opportunity to land some other guys as well if more scholarships become available.
Grayson, basketball this weekend, a huge game for the men against Houston. Your thoughts on what we're going to see tomorrow at Foster Pavilion and just the ramifications? And this is Big 12 basketball at its pretty close to best to having two programs like this. So your thoughts on this game?
I mean, it's a great bounce back moment for Baylor here. They really they lost the game that I felt like was very winnable against BYU, and it really came down to just. In my eyes, there was just a little bit of a lack of focus and a lack of sticking to the game plan, and you especially saw it on the defensive side. I mean, the amount of backdoor cuts that BYU scored layups on was just pretty inexcusable. It's not something you see from a Scott Drew defense ever, and it happened over and over again. BYU just basically shot uncontested threes and layups, and that's that was their game plan, and they made enough of them to beat Baylor. But I think the Bears are going to have to come out with a lot more focus because they're about to face a team that is really, really gritty, really, really physical, and they're going to get up and they're going to make Baylor beat them. And Baylor's going to have to make shots and be ready for the kind of just what they're going to see from a Houston team that is really playing well. They're playing very together. Defensively, Baylor hasn't seen a defense like this all year. So it's going to be a huge challenge. And I think Baylor's guards got pushed around a little bit against BYU, especially on the glass. And I can tell you right now, if they allow that against Houston, more of the same is going to happen because just all of those players on that team are extremely physical. They play extremely hard. They're going to offensive rebound. They're going to attack the glass. And Baylor's got to be quicker to the basketball. So I'm curious to see how Scott Drew adjusts this week. But it is big-time basketball, and it's a game that Baylor should really, really want to win. It could help their tournament resume and also continue to give them at least an opportunity to win the Big 12, even though that looks far more unlikely after the loss in Provo.
It looks far more unlikely, like no matter what happens with Houston, like they can lose a game here and then they win 4 in a row. So like every time somebody picks up one on them, they go on a streak while everybody else beats each other up, right? I mean, so it just they're just so damn good. They're so good.
They really are. They really are. And I would also say the other teams in the Big 12 haven't taken advantage of the opportunities they've been given. I mean, if Baylor beat BYU this week and then beat Houston, Baylor would be at the top of the Big 12 standings. But they weren't able to get it done. And that's because Houston's been the most consistent team in the Big 12. And unfortunately for Baylor, their defense just has not been consistent enough for them to kind of get over that hump.
Absolutely. Grayson, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Grayson Grudhaver, Sikkim365.com. Next, Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch, joins us. We'll talk about the Big 12's future in the college football playoff. We'll talk a little basketball with him, and then, whatever else might come up. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Our good buddy Josh Neighbors, Big 12 watch over on Crystal Ball College Football. And Josh, I reached out to you because I'm very curious to hear your feelings. And we had Josh every week during football season, then decided to give him some time to stretch his legs, maybe get out and see the world, do something, learn something, maybe a new language. I don't know what he's done since he's last been on with us here at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. But the college football playoff 5-7 model, and now possible expansion past that as they try to negotiate the deal with ESPN. Your thoughts on what they've decided so far and what you think the future is?
Yeah, good to be with you guys. What was your all's favorite moment of the 12-team playoffs? Do you all have one?
Man, it's so hard. There's so many, Josh. So many to sort through.
Right?
Yeah. I loved the very first meeting about it. I mean, I don't think we can ever go back to like the salad days of, when they said, "Hey, let's maybe do this." Like, though, I felt we were innocent then, and now we've become so jaded.
Yeah. So I think I like the 5+7. It just makes a lot of sense. I think in an era where we're starting to, see obviously separation to the top, like the power two and whatnot. It's good to have a model that still does include, some teams that I believe are worthwhile because, I think about like the idea of a 14, 16, and also like the four automatic qualifiers. I think about the Big Ten this year. Maybe in the future it'll be the case, but like there were not 4 deserving Big Ten teams in this year. And I just think about like how those results played out. And I think even like if you were to say like, a 12 team this year, like I would have a really difficult time putting Oregon in this year. Like you had 2 big games and you lost them both. Like, why does that team deserve to play for a national championship? So I think that there's ways to justify it, whatever, but I think a 5+7 does kind of allow you to have those arguments in a good way. 14, 16 is not going to allow you to have those. And it's going to hurt the regular season, especially in those conferences. And to me, I like the 5+7, but obviously it's overshadowed by the fact that as separation grows, like 5+7 is just going to be a short-term thing. It feels like, because if the ACC and the Big 12 and everybody else don't like what the Big 10 and the SEC are doing, they can go and do their own thing, which it'll do big numbers, but I actually don't know how long it will do big numbers for because I'm a big picture, guys. Big picture. That's kind of my thought process is like college football needs regionality to make the sport matter. You can't just tell the entire Big 12 they don't matter and they don't factor in. Why would they watch Alabama versus Clemson? Like if I want to watch hell of a football, I'll just do it on Sundays. So you aren't giving me the top level and my teams have nothing to do with the teams that you have playing. So like if it's not the elite of the elite and K-State can't play these teams, why should K-State fans care about those teams? It's kind of my big question about all of this. And I think it's where we have to be careful about the big breakaway that's happening. Cause like you tear the fabric of college football enough, you tear it apart, you're going to lose part of what actually makes it college football.
Yeah, the only thing I can think, Josh, is that the networks look at like getting $10 million plus for this Michigan versus whoever game, and they feel like, or at least the rationale that I see most of the time is, right. Okay, we'll lose a few 100,000 people that otherwise wouldn't watch, but we're still going to get $9 million for this game. And so I guess it's the trade-off perhaps that they feel is worth it. But I just don't know, to your point of like why you would want to alienate anybody, especially when you're so starved for content, and we know that you're going to want more and more and more games. So yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to run off some of your customers, even if you're still going to have a lot of customers left over.
And so I want to use it's a good point about like Michigan playing this team, but if you make every game that, it becomes less special.
Right.
So like what made Alabama and Michigan the juggernaut that it was? Michigan versus Bama in the Rose Bowl in a semifinal game, right? All of those things coalesced to make it the game it was. Bama versus Michigan special, but if you just give me Bama, if you give me steak every single night of the week, like some people are like, I could do it. Yeah. But like eventually it's not going to be as good anymore. There's certain things that you have to make stuff special. And the thing about Michigan this year, like think about Michigan played three big games, right? They played Penn State, they played Ohio State, 4, Michigan and Alabama, then the championship game. But like the Big Ten championship game didn't mean anything. That was a meaningless game, right? A Maryland game was somewhat close, but like the big games are big because they have some meaning, and you need to make sure the games have meaning. If you oversaturate, if you just give me Oregon, Alabama every week, give me Oregon, Washington, Alabama, USC, like it sounds good in principle and in theory, but like when USC is like they were last year and they're 7-4 and they're playing Alabama, and like, why should everybody actually care? It sounds really good, but I really do question in practice, can you give all of these great games every single week, great games every single week? Because it's not the NFL. It's not the NFL. It's not the highest level of football. And so I actually wonder if you can do it. And like, if at some point, is there diminishing returns?
Yeah, there's, there's a lot of schools that thought that the 12-team playoffs should make everything better, right? It's more inclusive, it's more expansive. But then when you start, Josh, letting TV executives make these decisions and telling the conference commissioners what they want, to me, that's where you get into the slippery slope of they're just going, all right, we know that Georgia gets an average of $6 million, and that Ohio State gets an average of $6 million. So if we put them together, that'll be $12 million, right? Or somewhere in that realm, and that's what we want to do. And then you get to the point of like, well, when Ohio State, play that game, against one of those Big 12 teams in the bowl, that pretty good ratings too. So, you're kind of betting on something that may not necessarily be what you think it is all the time.
And also you have to factor in, like, soccer is a good example of this. Not sure if you guys are soccer fans at all, but Champions League, it does great ratings. It's like one of the biggest things across the world, in terms of internationally what's watched. But the thing about Champions League is you still have to play group stage games. Like PSG and Barcelona and Real Madrid all still have to play group stage games against teams, like Napoli, right? From Italy. They have to play teams from Portugal. So they have to play teams from different countries before they can get into the knockout rounds, before they get those bigger games, with the big brands played, before you get Manchester City, against Barcelona in the Champions League final. Like, you have to make it there first. And also you are playing your in league competition as well too, right? So Manchester City has to play Brighton and has to play Wolverhampton. And those games are still big, and they're big for Wolverhampton when they get to play City at home. And that's why, like, that's basically the equivalent of Purdue gets to host Ohio State. And hey, it's not like Purdue doesn't win those games ever, right? Ohio State has pretty good records against everybody they play, but like Purdue's beaten them at times, and they beat them pretty badly a few years ago too. So it's not like these games, like, sometimes aren't competitive. Sometimes, like Ohio State wins most of the time, but I think it's still, you have to think about, you need to mix, like you need Purdue, Ohio State, because you need Ohio State, Michigan to be special. Like, you don't get to 12-0 by playing Michigan 11 times, right? You don't get 12-0. You're going to be 9-3. You're going to be 10-2. You're going to be 8-4. And that's the one thing about it, is like, it's going to look more NFL. The problem is like the college does not have the built-in year-over-year stars. What makes Patrick Mahomes such a massive superstar is how good he is, but also he's year number 8 or 7, 8 with the Chiefs now coming up next. You can't be in college for 8. Well, some guys are, but you can't be in college for 8 years, right? And so, like, we think about the big stars who have come across, college football, Johnny Manziel and Tim Tebow and Cam Newton. Like, those guys have to develop into stars. And so that's what makes them such massive figures. And you can't develop stars and make television ratings off stars the same way in college you can off pro. So you can't bank on Jags, Chiefs, the way they can. Or look, let's be honest, guys, it's crazy. In the NFL, Bills, Buffalo, New York, and Kansas City do massive ratings because they've got 2-star quarterbacks. Those are not massive markets. So it's because of those stars, which college can't develop. Like, you have to think about it like that too. In terms of strategy, you kind of need the crap in the middle to build up the big records and give you those big clashes and make them special.
Josh, when it comes to the Big 12, I think we all are realistic about their place. They're the 3rd, 4th best conference in any given year. There's a clear gap that's developed with the Super 2 and the rest of the leagues out there. But with this 5 and 7, it pretty much establishes there's going to be at least one Big 12 team in the fray every year that'll have a crack at it. And then depending on, what the future looks like beyond 26, maybe you're looking at a couple of teams guaranteed every year. But from a Big 12 perspective, how do you view the changes as good news, bad news, in the middle when it comes to the expansion of a playoff?
It's good news because you have basically guaranteed seat at the table. And, I think sometimes too, I think about the Baylor-Oklahoma State year. Like, if you go back and you look at those two teams' records and you look at how the championship game was decided, it's pretty hard to argue that both those teams shouldn't be in, right? So I think, you're going to have years like that. And then last year, too, is a good example. Not the Texas year, but the K-State TCU year is a good case because, look, K-State's your automatic qualifier in that situation. And then also TCU is going to make it in that situation too. And they end up being a top 4 or 5 team or top 4 team at the end of the year. But then they would definitely still be in it as an at-large, albeit. But so that's good. The one drawback is this. One Big 12 team has won a college football playoff game. It was TCU. They did beat Michigan, won this past year. They got dog walked by Georgia in the championship game. And now a Big 12 team, at the bare minimum, to make a championship game is going to have to win 2 CFP games, which has never happened before. And then sometimes they're going to have to win 3 games to even get to a championship game. Don't like your chances, right? You're really going to have to have some. I mean, it's going to have to be a gangbusters group. It's really going to have to be a special group to get the job done. And even, I would argue that a Texas team like this year, just with the way they were built, was built to be a team that, if you were to extend the playoff out, I like the way that team stacks up just because it's built from the guts out. I like teams like that and their ability to compete week in and week out. A team like TCU last year is not, obviously, as we saw it, not built to compete week in and week out with top level teams just because, the trenches were not their strongest area. And so that's going to be a huge level of emphasis, man. Like, can these teams build strong interiors, win at those positions, that really define how championship games are often won? And we saw it this year, Michigan, Alabama playing a high level, trench warfare game. Like, Washington had a bunch of old dudes up front, which really helped them a lot, and a decent enough defensive line.
And at quarterback.
So, obviously, that's the big winning position, right? And but here's the thing: is we've seen teams with good quarterback play before go Oklahoma, with all the quarterbacks, and it never really mattered. Washington was good enough at those positions to help supplement them and get them to where they were. It's just going to be really hard for a Big 12 team to build a winner like that. And we've got great coaches in this league, and we got really good players and good talent developers, but your talent has to come into a certain level on campus to kind of compete and win. And as we've seen things like the blue chip ratio from 24/7 Sports, the Big 12 does not recruit at that level.
No, they don't. Like, they're going to have and the Big 12 is really going to have to crush it in the transfer portal.
Or go all in on any given year, build up, and everybody's like, all right, 2026, we're going all in on NIL.
Yeah.
Get all the
it
coffers.
Needs to be like Missouri, Missouri and Ole Miss, essentially.
Yes,
it needs to be like,
exactly.
They need to have, like those teams for next year. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk a little basketball, Josh. You got Houston and Baylor tomorrow, which should be a really, really good game, or you'd hope it would be a really good game. Houston has a way of making games that you think are going to be excellent, not good, because they just play so damn hard all the time. But, you've got Texas and Kansas, which is Texas's last trip for the foreseeable future into the fog. So maybe not the best, top to bottom weekend, because there's a lot of, West Virginia and Iowa State. Iowa State should win that one. Tech on the road at UCF should be a tough place to play, but UCF's kind of fallen off. But those bookended games there, the first one and the last one, should be pretty darn good.
Yeah, so the Baylor game, I'm so excited for this. I mean, Houston, and I said this last week, and some people got mad at me about it, but they just foul you every possession, and they're basically going to ask the referees to call it. I mean, I was watching them against Texas, and they beat the brakes off them physically. I mean, just everything, every entry feed that's near the baseline's a double team. Every dribble drive is a hand check. And the thing that they do pretty well for the most part is they do not overextend in help situations. They have really good individual guard defense. And so you don't see guys coming over with lazy swipes. You don't see guys doing that off the ball. And they've got 2 guards in LJ Cryer and also Jamal Shed. And also, Darion Williams shot the crap out of the ball this year too. And honestly, Kerwin Walton has shot the hell out of the ball too. Not Kerwin Walton, but Darren Williams shot the hell out of the ball. I'm talking about Texas Tech players all of a sudden. The two guys, Cryer and Shed, have shot the hell out of the ball this year. They've had those two guys who've led the way. And Shed, I mean, they're better point guards, but he is like this unbelievable two-way player. He might be the best two-way point guard in the entire country. I love DeJuan Harris, but DeJuan Harris is not aggressive enough, I think, to get that distinction. And so there is no better two-way guard in the Big 12, and I think in all of college basketball than Jamal Shed. And I love the way Houston is physically. I mean, the fact that he can get this many guys, Kelvin Sampson, to play that way, like there's really no weak link on defense. It's crazy.
DeJuan Harris is one of the most befuddling players to me I've ever seen. He is exactly what you want on defense, distributing the ball, and he's a good scorer, but for whatever reason, he does not like to do that. He just doesn't shoot enough, and they really need him to, and Bill Self tells him to, but it's just not kind of his thing. It's very strange.
It's funny because I go back to that Kentucky game, the first game of the year. I think it's the first or second game, whatever it was this year. And you go and you look at his performance that he had third game. He was 7 for 12, 5 of 6 from 3, 4 of 5 from the line. He had 23 points. And I think he had, 7 assists too. And when you play a Kentucky team that's got Reeves and Shepard and Dillingham, like he knew he had to bring it at that spot. And so it's like, why can't you do that more often? Now, here's the thing. They've won a bunch of games this year, but you kind of wonder why you can't do that more often. Also, but I will also say too, man, it's hard when you've got a team that is so reliant on 5 guys. Mm-hmm. And honestly, he's the director of everything. So like, he's actually got to consider how much energy he's expending because and all those guys do, because their minute totals are ridiculously high. Those have to be the best conditioned players in the country. And you look at the percentages of their bench scoring, their starters, like the highest scoring percentage in the country for starters. Their bench is not good at all. Losing Arterio Morris killed them. Marco Jackson's not very good. Nicholas Timberlake, I think I could play better defense than he does. He's been terrible on defense, especially into that Baylor game. So they're really good. I love McCullough. I love KJ. I love KJ Adams. Dickinson to me, like he's a walking double-double, but I don't think he's actually that good. There's a reason why he's not in the NBA yet. But like their 5 is good. And Furphy's been a revelation. He might end up being a one and done, but beyond that, they just don't have very much. And so while they're good now, I'm wondering how they handle this last stretch here, because I think they might be just dog tired by the end of the season. And I think it might be another early exit for KU. Even though I feel like their top level is really good, they can just be dragged down because they can get pretty tired in games, and there's not a whole lot of guys they can turn to off the bench, in certain situations.
Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. Josh, I so enjoy our time together. Every time we have you on, always bringing the heat. I know it's like maybe a little bit sentimental, and maybe you're uncomfortable now, but I don't care. I want the world to know how much we have fun when you're on the show.
And I've been today, guys. I turned 27 today, so I've been very, kind of reflective about. And also did my taxes. Oh. I did my taxes as well today, which is like that. Also is reflective in a different way. It's like, and not a positive way. But I was like, hey, it was great to join you all this year, and I always have fun on Fridays when I get to talk with you guys.
Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch, the birthday boy. Go out and have a steak, Josh, with hopefully
pizza.
an impending massive tax refund. So.
Yes, let's hope so.
Yeah. All right, that's Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. Go like and subscribe to that channel, and particularly follow him. He's always fun when we have him on.
Yeah, and before you do that, like this channel and subscribe to this one if you haven't already. But yeah, go ahead and swoop in and do both if you wouldn't mind. That'd be great. But yeah, I think a lot of interesting stuff to discuss, obviously, right now, especially when it comes to the basketball landscape, and that's starting to sort of wind down here as we get closer to March, and the game tomorrow, just less than a mile from here, Houston and Baylor is going to be insane. Hopefully it lives up to the kind of hype that it's had all week long. But the postseason just being what that is now is fascinating future ahead for college football, even though a lot of the focus now has already moved on to this ruling in favor of Tennessee and Virginia. And I did want to clarify on this, like this basically is setting the table for the floodgates to open, but this doesn't just automatically go into effect across the country. Like this is a ruling for them for right now, but this is the way I've read it, inevitably going to lead to just everything opening up. And it's going to be free deal across the country as far as being able to negotiate NIL without restrictions and all of that for players. But I don't think that, like, boom, it's now in effect. Everybody everywhere and every school can just go for it. But I think like we're basically knocking on the door of that now.
Well, I mean, why, if you're the NCAA, why would you be dumb enough to go do this in another?
Exactly, yeah.
So, like, if they're
just legally speaking, yes,
they're investigating Florida right now too, right?
Yeah.
So they're investigating Florida right now, and the bigger thing with Florida, I don't think needs to be the dollar amount that they or this whole Jaden Rashada thing. It's how do you tell a kid he's going to get this much money, and then when he gets there, you tell him he doesn't have it? Like how do we have safeguards on that so that those things don't happen? Where's that? And that's more of probably a government insight thing, or oversight thing, which in Florida they don't have that. So, but yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, why would you go after Florida right now if you just lost this, knowing that, like, do you really want another state involved in this thing?
Right.
Especially one that's already thumbed its nose at you by changing the law 2 or 3 times about NIL.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it seems like a losing proposition. So I just wanted to put that out there. That doesn't mean that, like, Washington can now turn right around tonight and start, getting to it when negotiating and things like that, or anybody else for that matter in most places. But that's inevitable. That's going to be in quick order. But just the way that I read it was that this pertains to, I guess, the specific parties involved for this very moment, at least today. But yeah, I mean, I think we see the writing on the wall there. And his thoughts on, the Big 12 and just the kind of greater college football playoff are exactly mine. It's going to take a pretty extraordinary team to be able to maneuver its way through a 12-team playoff. And I don't know that anybody's really set up well enough to do much more right now than win a couple of games, perhaps. But a lot of things are going to have to go right, and it's just made more difficult when you've got the clear money difference that you have going on right now that's only going to get bigger and bigger. And when you're talking about paying players, like that $10 million is suddenly going to be pretty substantial, because you can spread that out over your roster, and that's $10 million that somebody else probably doesn't have. And it's much more than $10 million. So the advantages are just going to continue to flow in favor of the top two. And what happens if they try to change the scholarship limits, and suddenly you're Texas or Georgia and you can have unlimited scholarship because you've heard that floated out there? Like, what does that do? So point being, the deck's stacked, and you look at like one, I guess, example of 2023 and what would have been, I guess, the year that TCU went to the college football national championship against Georgia. I think this was accurate, but the premise is spot on. But if you were Kansas State that year, for example, you would have perhaps drawn like the number 10 seed. So that year they were good enough that you're looking at 2 bids in a 12-team playoff, most likely, for a Big 12 based on where Kansas State was and obviously where TCU was. TCU was in a spot where they would have gotten a bye. So they're good in that they have one less game to play. But the point being, if you were Kansas State that year, for example, this is where expectations are going to be interesting to see how they change. For you to win a national title, previously it was, in the case of TCU, beat Michigan, beat Georgia, right? Simple enough. You win 2 games, you're the national champion. As we saw, they got 50% of the way there. They beat Michigan, and then Georgia blew their doors off. But in a 12-team, if you're not somebody that even gets that first-round bye, right, here's a potential path that Kansas State could have walked a couple of years ago as like a 10-seed at large. Play Tennessee and Knoxville in your first-round game, okay? That seems daunting enough, no? But, like, okay, they could beat Tennessee. Like, I mean, they could compete. It's not like Tennessee's like the 1 seed. They would have been a 7 in this scenario, but still you're going to Knoxville just for starters. So let's say you win that game, okay? So you beat Tennessee. Well, then you turn around and you go play Michigan in the Rose Bowl. So now you're going to Los Angeles. Let's just say they win that game, okay? So you're beating Tennessee at their place. You're beating Michigan. And now, granted, there's some areas where Kansas State plays Tennessee in Manhattan. So, it's not necessarily this path, but it's an example. So you'd beat Tennessee in Knoxville, or even at home if you want to play it that way. Then turn around and go to the Rose, and then you got to beat Michigan. And then you're going to the Fiesta Bowl in that third playoff game, and you're playing one of TCU, who gotten a bye, and then either beating Alabama or Utah. So you're playing either one of those 3 teams, and then you go to the national championship game, and then you've got to beat any number of Georgia, Ohio State, USC with Caleb Williams, winning the Heisman that year. So that's the path you're walking. Yeah. And there's going to be some differences. Like I said, like Kansas State could host that first round game, but still, or maybe you get the draw and you get Tulane, in that scenario. But you're still looking at best case, okay, you're beating Tulane, but then you're still going to have to turn around and beat Ohio State, and then you're going to have to beat Georgia, and then you're going to have to beat whoever won the other side of the bracket. So just being realistic, that's going to be really, really difficult for most teams to do that. Like the winner of next year's national title is going to be one of the greatest teams of all time because of the road they'll have to have traveled.
Yeah. And I will say this. I think if you look at this, if you can let the playoff grow out long term and not push the other teams out of it, where you have it, then there will be parity across the board, because the things that Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State and Michigan and all these big schools have been able to say that, like, listen, I know that you would love to go to Mississippi State. Or, like, it's not even the SEC, right?
Right.
Like, I know that you really like Matt Campbell. I know. But, he's never going to get to play in this postseason. Right. Well, now he can.
Exactly.
So
I was going to get to that part of it, yeah.
Those things are going to change. It's going to be incremental.
Yes.
And it's going to rely heavily on the fact that teams like Iowa State still get a chance to be in this in the long term, because if they don't, then they don't have to worry about it, because then you can just be like, well,
Yeah, I still think access, even if I do think the access reduces your chances. Like if you got an either or. You either want the easier route, which is winning a couple games, or you wanted more wider access, which is now meaning that you're having to win at least 3 games to win a national championship. So, there's no perfect scenario that's easy, but you do have greater access. So, yeah, there's a Kansas State that would be able to get in, like a couple years ago, because they won the Big 12 title, and then TCU would also have still gotten in as one of the Final Four there. Now, TCU's example here, they only had one more game to what they already did. So you can look at it that way, too, because they would have gotten a bye. So they're not having to play that first-round game, and they would have played like the winner of Alabama and Utah. So, do they get past that one? I don't know. But you win that game, and then you get into what they actually had, which is then you beat Michigan, and then you got to go play Georgia most likely. So if you get that bye, that one less game I think is going to matter a great deal for anybody who gets that, because that fourth game is going to be a real extra challenge that you'd like to avoid if at all possible. So it's doable, but I would prefer, in this landscape at least, as opposed to having no seat at the table, I think you prefer a seat at the table rather than the hopes that you have a better percentage to win the Natty, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of how you have to look at it now.
Yeah.
I mean, because first of all, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it your way. And we're not going back to just a poll voting for, computer voting for the 2 to play for a title. So I think just having that access for an ACC, for a Big 12, and probably or possibly even greater, like maybe a couple of auto bids in the future.
Yeah.
The chances of actually rolling through that tournament are lower than winning a 14 playoff for certain, but your odds to actually be in the playoff are much greater than they were previously. So everybody who's not winning a national title is going to end their season with a loss, other than like whatever we do with bowl games. But those are going to be not an afterthought, but when you're taking like the top 12 or 16 teams, like you're eliminating a lot of really interesting regular non-playoff bowl games. So other than those schools,
like the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, like the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah,
other than who wins the Citrus Bowl,
Yeah.
everybody's losing their last game other than the national champion.
And the other thing that, like, bowls are going to have to be, like, Baylor plays this game in South Carolina, in South Dakota every year at that, what is
Sanford Pentagon?
Yeah, the Sanford Pentagon. So they play that there. That is an NIL game. That's what bowl games are going to have to be, is NIL games.
Probably, yeah.
But that is what you're going to have to do.
You're talking basketball, but yes.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's like Baylor plays that basketball game there.
Right.
Bowl games are going to have to do that. Like, it's going to have to. If you want to survive, especially for the Independence Bowl, then it may be like, and honestly, there needs to be a culling of that herd, quite honestly. Like, cull the herd down to where it makes sense, and the top, the top 12, or let's just say the 16 playoff happens. Like, that's 16 is probably going to happen. Like there's no doubt in my mind that the feverish, drive for more money is going to get us.
The word
to
you're
16.
looking for is greed.
Yes. Greed is going to get us to 16. Whether it's the best system or not, this has never been based on the best system ever. Not once has this ever been based on the best system to determine the champion. Because it used to be guys voting in the friggin' mail. Like who won the national championship? Alabama. Why? Oh, there's all these letters we got from sports writers. That's why. But after that 16, let's just say the next 24 can be in bowl games or 36, whatever. And that maybe gets you down from 50 bowl games like we have right now down to 30 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not anti-bowl. I don't like that some of them are clearly just like money traps of like just random location, shady sponsor. Just, I don't know. I think that you could call maybe a handful of them at the very bottom of the ranks. I don't know, but I am interested in what those look like because you are taking away the biggest bowl games and the best teams in any given year, and not just 4 of them or a couple of the big bowl games, but like all the New Year's 6 and then the top 12 teams as of right now, but will likely to grow to 16. So what are you really left over with at that point, and what does that look like? But yeah, I do think that a lot of those non-playoff bowls are going to have to be NIL fests, and even then, I don't know if that's going to stop a lot of guys from bailing like they still do or like they already do. But yeah, that's one unanswered question is what happens to the non-playoff bowls. But I do think, as much as I've seen like Big 12 fans don't realize that this is not good for it, actually, it's like there was no perfect scenario. So yeah, it actually is good for them because the whole ominous, like, you're not even going to have a seat at the table. Well, they do have a seat at the table, and they might have even like a second seat at the table. And I understand the path to actually winning a national championship is harder than it's ever going to be before. And the deck is stacked more so than ever before, but it sure as hell beats not having a seat whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So, that's how I look at it, at least. And if you can get a couple seats, then even better, because that sure beats the alternative of the doomsday scenarios that people want to throw out there. So, yeah, as long as it stays that way. Now, beyond 2024, 5, and then eventually when we get into 26 and whatever they want to, however they decide to set up that format with the automatic qualifiers. Now that's the interesting part of like how much can you guarantee there, which you would hope you could guarantee a couple if you're a league like that. But we don't know what the ACC looks like by then, much less like next month. So that's going to be the automatic qualifier conversation, or how they decide to set up beyond these next couple years. It's going to be a very important conversation and big time topic of interest for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see how it plays out, and
I do think though, if you're like, it's going to take to win a title with no Oklahoma and Texas, who had the best ability to go and do that. Like, we've seen TCU though go crack at the door, but I think it's going to take everybody in one particular year for one particular school going, all right, this is the year. Like, we're going balls to the wall.
We've got this quarterback who we developed and we lucked into, or he's the guy that we're going balls to the wall to get, right? This guy's going to make the difference. We've got this good law. Like,
giving every player $50,000.
Everything, yes.
We're going to go that full bore. And that's what it's going to take. And then it's going to still take luck and health and all that.
And here's the deal. For all the talk about the SEC, like the examples that you and Josh used earlier, were right now it's Ole Miss and Mizzou, right? Doing that. And Ole Miss and Mizzou are SEC schools. So it's not just Big 12 schools that are going to have to do that. There's schools that are in the league, in the power leagues, that are going to have to try and do that because they've got to get over, look, Georgia is buoyed by the fact that Ole Miss is better than most of the good teams in other leagues, but they're still not really trying to help them out that much.
No, and that's a fair point, because Ole Miss's path got harder as well.
Yeah.
I mean, so they've got to go win a couple extra games, and they're doing exactly what I just said. Like you pointed out, they're saying 2024, we're going all the F into this whole thing, and we're getting everybody we possibly can with NIL, and we're bringing these guys back and all that. So yeah, I mean, even for those schools that you would think are set off better, it's still going to take like a Herculean effort. It's going to take a Herculean effort for anybody to win this dadgum thing, man. Playing 3 to 4 games and neutral sites and all these different configurations, that's going to be Man, I don't know how you can't not love the idea of it. Like, I'm so excited to see what that looks like. It might be a total disaster, but I want to at least see it one time. And if it's a disaster, so be it. But I think it's going to be pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, no, I do. I think it like think about what Walter Nolan got to go to Ole Miss. Like, he might have a butler.
He may be.
He might have a butler, and then he might just call him Alfred because, like, all right, look.
That's what you call butlers.
That's what you call butlers. I'm Batman now, and you're Alfred. And you're like, actually, my name's Dennis. Shut up, Dennis.
Yeah, right.
You're Alfred. You're here in Oxford, Mississippi, and you're Alfred. That's what you are. And so, I can't imagine if he walks into his house and says, like, calls up the NIL and be like, hey, it smells funny in here today. You know what? Go to the spa. We got you covered. By the time you get back, it'll all be gone. So those guys at Ole Miss this year, and Mizzou just got the big influx of money. We'll see how they.
I saw Luther Burden make his. Everybody's making their gaming announcements because everything's an announcement these days. Which I guess that's cool to some extent, but I mean. I think it'd be more interesting if, like, I'm not going to be in the game, because that's the actually, like, change from the status quo is who won't be in the game. So when the moment Quinn Ewers says I'm not going to be in, that's to be like, oh wow, that's a juicy headline right there. Wonder why. Let's unpack that. But I think guys declaring that they'll be in the game's kind of silly. But I get from a promotional standpoint for themselves, for the schools, and for the video game, it's obviously something that's great for them for advertising and all of that. But, this new era is going to be just a total wild card of whatever that looks like. So, I think that you do take it's a trade-off. You take a little bit of a blow. Your odds to win a natty, if you're most every school not in a top 10, basically, your odds have decreased, but they're not zero. They're not much larger than that. But they already kind of were for most of the schools like that way anyways. It's just they're a little bit lower, but your percentage of actually getting in that bad boy and at least having the chance, which is what a lot of people didn't even get, that's going to be like the new token, and that's going to be your big fun door to walk through.
Yeah. Here's a trivia question for you when it comes to Ole Miss. How many SEC titles do they have hanging up on their wall?
None.
None.
Yeah,
that's not a new school either.
No.
It wasn't founded in 1981. Like, it's been around a while.
Buffy's been tailgating at the Grove for decades now. Yeah,
exactly. So they've never even won a conference title, and so this is their time of like. And look, if they don't win it, if they get close, they're going to be in the playoff. So this is great news for them. They don't have to clear that hurdle anymore to get there, but they still haven't even done that. Right. Ever in their history, have never won the SEC. We'll take a break right here. We'll come back, a shorter segment before we get to Pat Nunley. This is 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back. An interesting conversation in the break came up about, Craig, go ahead and kind of point in the direction about what you would rather have your team do.
Yeah, first I want to issue Ole Miss fans an apology.
Yeah,
because you incorrectly stated. Now I get where you were coming from here, and I kind of balked because I didn't know for sure, but I knew where you were leading me down. The answer was to none, and I was trying to think of when have I seen Ole Miss win an SEC title. They have won 6, but while those are all valid, you don't take those away. They were all pre-championship game era, and the last one came in 1963. So you can understand why Paul was saying none, basically, because they all happened in a time period that we were either not around for, or many people were probably watching this were much, much younger, obviously. But yeah, they won one in 1963. That was their last one. They won 6, but it was all 63 and before. So your point still stands as far as like the modern era. That's modern, but you know what I mean. In this current era, it's been a long time.
1963 is not the modern.
Pre-segregation.
It's not the modern era.
Modern era, I look at it as post-World War II.
Okay, yeah, I look at it as post-full desegregation.
Well, some might talk about it now as post, like this year, because it's all going to be so drastically different. Yeah.
Well, there's different era, like pre-85 scholarship era is another one you could do too, because before 85 scholarships, Alabama could just hoard all these guys because they thought they were going to go play for Bear Bryant, and they could have been playing other places. Now, Alabama still would have won, but they had a better chance of winning with those guys not going to Auburn or to Mississippi State or whatever. Because they could just hoard the best at every level, and that's what they could do. But now that there's 85 scholarships and Title IX, that's a whole thing that comes in, because that means that you've got to, limit your resources. And then there's this era. So there's different eras. But yeah, I think the biggest things like post-World, like pre-World War II, where football was a thing that was so new still, and not even the game that we're watching now at all. It is, but it's not.
Right.
And then you go post-World War II and how it kind of had to find itself. And then you kind of go all the way to like where, desegregation started to happen. And then that changed the game completely, because now you have all this talent that's available to you and all over the place. And then on down the line to 85 scholarships, NIL era, all those things that have happened. What do you want to call this one? The Caligula era, where everything goes. I don't know. It's just how college sports has become, because it's different all the way around the line. So, but would you rather have the Baylor Sugar Bowl year, if you're a team like Baylor that has never played for a football national title? Now, they've had teams that probably could have a couple times, and the fickle finger of fate or nonsense kind of rolled past them. Or would you rather be in the playoff, lose a game, and then have what happened to TCU? I think I would take the TCU one.
I want to get back to something here. I saw a clarification. I was talking about the NIL ruling from today and how that was based on just Tennessee and Virginia, but I just came across Nicole Auerbach says that the court order grants the preliminary injunction to stop the NCAA enforcing NIL rules and recruiting is applicable to all recruits in all schools in all states. So I was, I'd misunderstood the original ruling. So that's across the board. already, according to Cole Auerbach. So that's obviously I want to clear.
Rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Joined now by Baylor men's basketball radio analyst Pat Nunley, who we have not talked to Pat in a while, and I've missed him terribly. Not being on the show gives great insight on not only Baylor but the rest of the Big 12. And Pat, this one, it would be, throwing at too much, as far as the weight of this game. But this could really be kind of a swing game as Baylor heads down the stretch if they can, win a game at home against the best team in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. There have been a couple of swing games. We thought the Iowa State game was a swing game, and it was. And that was a huge win for Baylor to just sort of stake a claim to the top 3 or 4 in the league. And right now they're number 4. Actually, they're tied with Kansas and Texas Tech at 8 and 5. So that was a swing game. And I think this one could absolutely be that for Baylor. Did not play well at BYU. In fact, I thought stepped back a little bit in that game. The things that Baylor typically brings to a game, they did not do. And I think playing in Provo had a lot to do with that. So now, and the good news about being in the Big 12 is you don't have to let that linger. Have a huge opportunity tomorrow, and absolutely a quad win if Baylor can get it. It's a tough out for the Bears, but playing at home, I think, and playing a game after a less than performance on Tuesday, I think they're positioned well. And if they win this one, they then again are 1 game out of first. They're 2 games out now behind the league leader, Houston, tomorrow. Get this one tomorrow and have some momentum. And by the way, they'll need it. I mean, the last stretch of games in the Big 12 for Baylor are brutal. I mean, it's the upper echelon of the league, and could start tomorrow. Sure hope so.
Pat, what did you think about your experience and the crowd and just the atmosphere in Provo the other night?
Craig, it was really about what I expected it would be. I've been up there. I played up there years ago, and then we went up years ago with Pierre Jackson and those guys. And it is as good a home crowd as there is in the league, really. You know, it's right there with Fog Allen. It's different than Allen Fieldhouse, but it's 17,000 people, and they are I won't call them hostile. They're just too nice to be hostile. But it is a tough place to play. And, you know, when you go to a place like that, and BYU is such a rhythm offensive team, you have to make them uncomfortable somehow. And they were never uncomfortable in that game. Even when Baylor made 7 of its first 8 shots, BYU never flinched. And that's just that place for BYU, I think, gives them 10 points. And they use those 10 points to their advantage. It was a great place to go watch a game. And the people up there are genuinely nice. Now, there's no doubt about who they're pulling for, but those people, they're so nice and so hospitable. It's really almost hard to believe, but it is genuine. But they're sure glad to beat us and send us home with a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Pat, it's wild for me to hear you say it's kind of like the Fog. And I just made my first trip there when Kansas played Houston with my Jayhawk bride. And the thing I found intimidating about that place it's very clear when you walk in that they're telling you who invented basketball. You know,
no question.
The rules are there, but the fans are so the fans are so smart about the game itself. Like, they know exactly when to do things to affect the game. And if BYU's like that, like let's add another tough place to play in the Big 12. It's nuts.
Yeah, and it may not be that, but it's awfully close. And I think the difference, Paul, is what you just described. You go to Kansas, and there is a museum in the arena, right? It's all about college basketball, the history of college basketball. So you got to give Fog Allen the nod there. But it's as difficult to play at the Marriott Center as it is at Fog Allen. At least it was for Baylor the other night. Baylor played better at Kansas than it did at BYU.
Yeah,
just put it that way.
That's true.
Yeah.
Pat, your thoughts on losing Langston Love again? Looks like the last reports from a couple of hours ago that he's back to day-to-day, same status as before the BYU game with that ankle injury. I guess you're kind of used to dealing with this now, but your thoughts on the impact there?
Well, it's an impact for sure because he's not only, he's shooting 53% from the three-point line in Big 12 play, and that is a big number. And not only does he shoot it well, the key, I think, down the stretch tomorrow and then down the stretch, and really any game Baylor plays, you got to attack the rim. And, you know, Jaden Nunn does it violently. Ray J. Dennis just kind of lives there. But a guy that knows how to get the ball to the rim and finish strong is Langston Love. He's big, he's strong, he knows how to use his body, he uses it well. He's a really good free throw shooter, and he's old. He's wise. There's a lessons learned about Langston Love. He never flinches in the league, doesn't matter where they're playing. So it's a loss. It sure is. And, you know, with him not being able to play, Jaden Nunn has played extremely well. In fact, I thought going into the BYU game, he was the hottest player in the Big 12. Newcomer of the week, player of the week, the week before. So he's filled in nicely, but that's a big hole to fill with Langston Love not being able to play, particularly as you look at getting to the finish line in the Big 12. You really need both barrels loaded, and we're going to miss him if he doesn't play.
Pat, what is your best strategy for attacking this Houston team that they play so hard? I mean, there's not, and Kelvin Sampson has got it instilled in this team in particular, and not that he didn't with the other ones, but this one seems to be a little bit different in that there's not a possession that they go, we're fine here, we're up by 8. Like, we could be up by 11 if we do this the right way. Like every single time down the floor, they just wear you out. And Baylor's a team that plays hard too, but Houston has nearly perfected it.
They have, and to me, Houston's identity is defense. And it is not a coincidence that the two best defensive teams in the league played for first place on Monday. That's Houston and Iowa State. And Houston is going to guard you. And in fact, they're in the same league defensively that Baylor's national championship team was, I believe. They don't really have the length. They've got some rim protection. They probably could use more, but they get after you. They lead the league in almost every defensive statistic. They allow opponents to score, get this, in conference play, 61 points a game. So they are nasty defensively. And because of that, or maybe they can do that because they are so physical. We thought BYU was a good offensive rebounding team. Houston is number 2 in the league in offensive rebounds per game. This is kind of interesting. University of Houston has 2 of the top 6 offensive rebounding players in the league. And they don't have a player in the top 15 individual rebounders in defensive rebounding. So they go to the glass like a pack of rabid dogs, and they're going to do that again tomorrow. But they start with defense. And so strategy-wise, you have to touch the paint. You have to get to the paint. You have to get to the free throw line. And that's easier said than done against a team that really defends well, particularly on the perimeter. But they're rugged, and it's their identity is defense, and it's toughness. And so Bears are going to have to – it's the old toughest team wins thing. Bears are going to have to be tough tomorrow.
You think it's going to be fun to see LJ Cryer back, and you think he gets a warm reception, or you think it's going to be a little chilly from the Baylor fans?
You know, Craig, I'll put it this way. He's not going to sneak into that arena.
Right,
They know who he is. And, I don't know I kind of do know what to expect. It's not going to be a warm reception. It's just not. But that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
You know, transfer portal, free agency, you go somewhere else in the league, you expect what's coming. He's going to get a lot of flack tomorrow, and that's just the way it is. The time that he was here, played on 2 championship teams, played on a national championship team. So he's had really good times here. He was a very good player for Baylor. And again, in the transfer portal thing, I mean, this is just mainly on transfer portal. You can't blame the kid. You can't. You can't blame Matt Meyer. You can't blame LJ Cryer. There's a lot that goes into the decision to transfer, and he made the decision that was best for him. He's a good kid. He's a really good player. And so that'll be my attitude, but I don't think that attitude is shared by most of the crowd that'll be there tomorrow.
The other thing Baylor fans need to know is Scott Drew, when it comes to that staff, when it comes to the transfer portal, basically throws in pennies and gets out $100 bills most of the time. So occasionally when you lose, in the Vegas slots way that the transfer portal works, they're coming up all 3 most of the time. So yeah, sometimes you get to give, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the transfer portal giveth and the transfer portal taketh away.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it works. This is not funny, but it's kind of interesting. So we're at West Virginia, and the student section's right down there on the floor, and they're handing out 1-pagers with mug shots of players who had transferred from West Virginia to another team. And, of course, there's Jalen Bridges. And at the top of the mug shot, the word traitors. is on this one pager. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. If that's the definition of a traitor, West Virginia is starting 5 traitors tonight.
Yeah, very good point.
They're not the Mountaineers anymore. They're the Benedict Arnolds.
Yeah.
Like that's.
I guess, but just, you know what? Get used to it because it's not going to change anytime soon.
Oh, no, especially not with the further news today about NIL and how that's basically – we thought it was Wild West before. Now it's completely no rules after the news today. I was just curious. I mean, we're at Provo, and obviously BYU's got a very solid team. We know Houston. We've talked about them. UCF, it's a bit more of a struggle right now. The adjustment in Cincinnati, losing 2 brands like Texas and Oklahoma, like that's certainly going to be felt in some areas, Pat. But now that you've gotten a bit of a taste of the 4 new schools, and granted, there's another 4 that are on their way next year. But just how do you kind of feel about the way the future of the Big 12 basketball landscape is taking shape, given what's coming in, what's leaving?
Well, I'm excited about it, and I'm an old school guy. I mean, we've been playing Texas forever and Oklahoma since the Big 12. So, I'd like for those rivalries to continue, but it's just the way life is now in college basketball. But to answer your question, I like it. BYU is a great addition. Cincinnati is going to get better. UCF is going to get better. Those 2 teams understand what Big 12 basketball is all about now that they've been in the league. And there's a lot of history with Cincinnati. They're going to get good again. UCF is going to make a commitment to it. And BYU, they're 7-6 in the league, 19-7 overall. They were picked to finish, I think, 13th in the league. So these guys have come in and realized if we're going to play in the Big 12 and compete, we got to get better. And they're going to do that. And then, bringing in these other teams, my gosh, add Arizona. So think how good the league is right now. Mm-hmm. Now add Arizona to it. Mm-hmm. And we just got back from a 5-day swing, West Virginia, which is 3 hours there, and then West Virginia to Provo. That's 4 hours, and it's 2.5 hours back. We're going to do that 2 or 3 times next year.
Yikes! Yeah.
So it's different. It's different, but I'm excited about it. I think the best basketball conference in the country just got better.
Yeah, absolutely, Pat. The rest of the league in the Big 12, I'm curious on your opinion on this, is good. I mean, they're good. They've got Iowa State is fantastic. Baylor, I mean, getting that win over Iowa State, like even now, just kind of resonates. It was a swing game, but, they have had a loss since then, but sent them on a nice little path. But Kansas is good, but not Kansas good. Like Kansas fans will tell you, like this is not the vintage we're used to drinking. There's something missing there. Is there outside of Houston a team that you think could make a legitimate deep run in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, Iowa State can, and again, the defense just speaks to me. I don't think you can win a championship, a national championship, even a conference championship, if you can't defend really well, because as we've seen with Baylor, offense is not going to travel, and you're just not going to be at your best offensively, particularly in this league every night. And so if you can rely on your defense to get you through a tough game, you've got a real chance. And to me, that's really where Baylor is. On a night where you're not playing well offensively, can you still win a close game, tough game in this league? But to answer your question, Paul, Iowa State can make a run. Kansas can make a run. They always can. They've got the guys. They're not very deep, but they've got guys. And then I think Baylor, Texas Tech, and TCU could all find a bit of a rhythm and make a run, get hot. The key, I think, at this stage of the game is you've got to be confident, you've got to be playing well, and you've got to be healthy. And that's just what it's going to take. Baylor not completely healthy right now, but if you've got those 3 things and you can get into a bit of a groove, you can make a run. And so those teams I mentioned, and then there's probably a surprise among the others in the league, just don't know. It's hard to tell right now because there are so many teams out there that fly below the radar who are legitimately good and can make a run. It's crazy. I don't think I've ever seen the parity in college basketball that I've seen this year, and it goes back to the transfer portal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Pat, enjoy tomorrow. I'll see you there. Actually, this is the first time I've been able to get out to the pavilion. I'm very ashamed of myself, but look, I'm married now. Things are different in my life.
I get it. You know what, Paul? Your priorities are right.
Thank you.
Stick with that.
Yes.
But you're going to enjoy tomorrow. I can say that for sure.
Yes, and we'll be there, of course, a week from tomorrow as well. Even though I will not be sitting with my wife because I've done that once when Kansas is playing. So anyway, but Pat, always great to talk to you, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, guys.
All right.
Always a pleasure.
Right,
okay,
bye.
see you later.
Wow. Yeah, Pat, the great Pat Dudley, a great college. Like, you could take him off the Baylor broadcast and put him on. I'm surprised he and John. Like, obviously they can't because usually Baylor's in it. But if I were Westwood One and like once Baylor's out, if I was like, let's pick these guys up and throw them on a broadcast, he and John would do great on any broadcast that they're on. Such a good basketball broadcast there. But this should be an interesting one tomorrow, 11 o'clock tip. Not the Titan matchup, but I am curious Texas's last trip into the fog, if that crowd maybe is a little more up for that one because it's the last time that they're going to be there.
Oh, yeah, I would imagine they probably will be. I don't know how big of a deal they see that as. It's not like it's an in-state rival the same way it is for the way that you could see how TCU or Baylor or Texas Tech or even, I guess, Houston would view it, having that in-state competitor. But it's a lot of history. It's a long time that these two have been playing each other over a couple of decades and competing with one another in all these different sports. But basketball certainly KU's bag, and they've had lots of success. And so a big brand like Texas rolling in for a matchup is, I think going to be some must-see TV, even though they're not the best team in the world right now, but they're still very talented and competitive, and so that ought to be a lot of fun, and I think that there probably will be some of that. This is the last time this is going to happen, and so you hear maybe a little bit more noise for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, thanks to everybody for sticking with us through a little blip we had, and thank you once again. I'm going to get a plug-in for Unite Private Networks. That was not an internet issue at all. Garrett, we have a piece of hardware called the Azure up there. And it is a finicky little
terrible
B word.
Yes.
It will give us some problems from time to time, and we have to work around it when that happens. And only took us about 5 minutes to do it, which is good. That we've cut our time in half there. If we could cut it in half again, I don't know if we can, because it's basically the machine telling us what to do. But we did not drop out. We didn't have to start a new stream because of Unite Private Networks. That's how good the internet is in this building. Emery knows. Emery had a bit of a crisis at his house last night. He had to run back and fix because he doesn't have Unite Private Networks and is now regretting not finishing the project here. So that's how good it is. Absolutely. So everybody in the chat room wants me to make a prediction on Baylor and Houston, and I'm not like giving scores. It's hard to pick against Houston, but home court in the Big 12 means something. It does.
Yeah. I think I'd probably take Houston if I had to put a little wager on it, but I do think home court matters a great deal. I think coming off of a loss, that's going to provide a little bit of extra ammo, whereas had you won and you were kind of coming in, both off of wins, and maybe you're not thinking about it the same exact way as you do post a loss and kind of regroup. So I don't know. I could see where that could favor them, that they came off of a loss, plus being at home. Baylor's a good team, but I think Houston's just kind of at a better level right at this moment. So I would go Houston, but I think it ought to be, highly competitive and a lot of fun. That's all I'm banking on for sure.
Yep, absolutely. We'll take a break right here. We'll come back. One more segment in the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Attention all car enthusiasts. Get ready for the President's Day sale happening at Allen Samuels in Waco. For a limited time only, drive home in a car of your dreams with unbelievable discounts. Looking for luxury? How about the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Summit with a whopping $12,500 off MSRP? Or maybe the adventurous spirit of the 2023 Jeep Compass and Renegades, now 10% below MSRP. But wait, there's more. Save big on the rugged 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport Sport with savings of $13,000 and an incredible 15% off MSRP on every 2023 Gladiator. Rev up your engines with the 2023 Dodge Charger RT, now $8,000 off MSRP. And a special thank you to our first responders. Enjoy a $500 off your purchase. Hurry in now and take advantage of these unbelievable deals. This inventory won't last long. Visit Allen Samuels in Waco. Come by. Let's be friends.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Nitchie Group Insurance Agency. With the Nitchie Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Nitchie Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Nitchie Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, as we finish out Friday on into the weekend. And Craig, the official number on the NFL salary cap is out, up to $255.4 million per team. So if your team is in salary cap jail, or not as much salary cap jail as you would have thought they would be, and everybody knew it was going to be a record high, but this they raised it $30.6 million per team. So that is that's a defensive end right there that they essentially have.
Yeah, but that'll be handy to know before free agency.
Yeah. So
I don't know how that timing works, but it just seems like if you just got done spending a bunch of money on players, I guess that's for the following year.
It's for this year. The 2024 season.
So much crazy here, but like you just
free agency starts in 3 weeks.
Okay. So, okay.
Well, March
I got
13th,
you. I was thinking about
2
this.
weeks.
Okay. Yeah. I've got my times all mixed up.
Yeah.
Then.
So we've got Combine coming up next. Then it's free agency, like a week and a half after that's over. So
I was thinking somehow that was already in the rear view, but no, we just finished the Super Bowl. So how could that be? But
yeah,
I'm just getting my times confused, I guess. But yay for the NFL making money. I don't know, when I hear stories like this, I don't know. I'm not like Darren Ravel of like just money. And think that's great for free agents, great for teams, like you said, that are in salary cap jail, even though that's not really a thing that exists so much because we see people get their way around those bars all the time. But, I'm certain that there's a number of teams out there that were pleased with that news, and that's, again, certainly great news for the players themselves. But, hey, nice to have a salary cap, too, though, and just have that to operate under and have everybody on the same page there. But we're only talking about 32 teams, though, and contracts and all those types of things. But, yeah, cool to I guess, hear that. And the NFL offseason is off and running, I guess, with that type of a news. So the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, and now we can start to focus on who can try to dethrone them next season. But going to be tough.
Well, if the Dolphins are going to do it, they're going to do so without former Oklahoma State defensive end Emmanuel Ogbah and former Baylor cornerback Xavier Howard. Both of them have been notified that they will be released at the start of the new league year. Some of them might be released right away, and they can sign earlier because of the rule. I don't know. It's weird. The Patriots released a couple guys the other day, and they can sign right away. I don't know. The rules are weird. I don't completely understand or can describe them. But Xavier Howard, 4-time Pro Bowler, one of the greatest gets recruiting-wise in Baylor history. We've told the story before. We're not going to go through it again, but a guy, we were at the draft when he got picked in the second round, and we were all kind of surprised because he hadn't quite blossomed into what he would be. Was the highest paid cornerback in the league for a short time, but now available for anybody to sign him. He's had to deal with injuries and a lot of off-the-field things.
He hadn't had a great off-the-field year with just baby mama drama and all sorts of accusations as far as, just messy stuff. Not like I don't think it's really
break the law. But
although
I
guess there could be,
but
it's not like he went and robbed a bank or he shot somebody or it's nothing like that. It's just big time baby mama drama, a bunch of baby mamas is what he's dealing with.
He would have a really rough day on Mari Povich.
Yeah, for sure. So that's been rough to see for him because he was a fun guy to follow here. But that was so many years ago. Now at this stage, I still vividly remember kind of being shocked about him declaring for the draft as early as he did. And then, goes and is a high second rounder. So what the hell do I know? But that was still kind of surprising just because he didn't stand out that much to where you're thinking of a guy who was going to go jump in the league and make an impact as quickly as he did and how big of an impact as he did make. But, I'm not shocked here. His situation, not only the off-the-field stuff, but, on the field, there's enough reason to cut him because he's making a lot of money. You signed him to some big-time money not that long ago, and he's been hurt. He's hurt all the time. I feel like when I look, especially the last year or two, he's been in and out of the lineup with injuries, and they had just grabbed Jalen Ramsey last year, and I just kind of felt like the writing was starting to be on the wall there for Xavier Howard at his age, at that position, and with the money attached to him. I'm not surprised the Dolphins decided that they could use that spot on the roster and the funds in a different manner or different manners. So, that's unfortunate. I've seen that he's already apparently shown interest or has mentioned to somebody. Who knows how some of this is tracked down, quite frankly. But, he's released and 30 minutes later, he'd love to play for Houston. Well, he's from Houston. So, that just put two and together there. I don't know if the Texans need, and I guess the big question is, what's his price tag? Because it's not going to be what he was making. So I hope for his sake, he's saved up his money. Although the baby mama stuff, I'm sure, is wreaked havoc on some of those dollars, but hopefully he's set himself up pretty well because his days of getting that massive contract are over. He's getting older, he's getting beat up, so those days are over. But he's still going to be a guy that somebody wants, and maybe it's hometown Houston for all we know. But we'll see who else is interested in his services, but he'll be on a roster somewhere.
Yeah, he will. And gosh, I'm sure he needs to because he's going to.
He'll need to
money.
be, yeah.
He needs the money. Ask Antonio Cromartie, same issue, maybe not quite as messy. Yeah, Adrian Peterson, Both guys, all who made a lot of money.
My favorite player ever, and I'm just watching him argue over whether he's broke or not after making like $80 million. That's just so depressing.
Yeah. I mean, Dancing with the Stars pays well, but I'm sure that went right
dude,
in. Like, it's like
the moment I saw him on there, I was like, all right, he must need some money. I mean, unfortunately.
Yeah. No,
not
absolutely.
Everybody does on that show,
No.
but I just feel like that was just very random. Adrian Peterson, I mean, great player, NFL legend, but I didn't get the same warm and fuzzies as just like, oh, it was an invite to be on this show, and that's great. I felt like there was always like a need to be on that show as well. But yeah, there are all sorts of different reports on him selling memorabilia, or I guess others selling his memorabilia because he's got no money to pay creditors, I guess. All I know is he made a ton of money over his career. He's not the first guy to have blown through it for various reasons, legal reasons, marriage, or I guess I don't know how much of it's marriage reasons, but you know what I mean. It's just depressing though, because if it looks like what it looks like, and he's selling off all his awards and old jerseys and things like that, or because of his situation, others are taking his stuff and selling that to get some of that money back. I mean, that's just, there's no way to spin that as a positive. He tried to debunk the like, oh my God, he's broke and he's losing everything.
It's different for certain people.
It is. So we'll see what that actually looks like in the long run. But yeah, I hated to see that.
You know, and this is neither here nor there. So Amanda's got me into watching all these reality shows. I will admit that I've fallen.
I might not get married just for that sole reason, to avoid watching all these crappy television shows.
I'll tell you, I've gotten into them. If I'm going to watch them, I'm going to try to enjoy it. And I say all these reality shows. Like, most of them are like The Amazing Race or something where they're doing something. The Amazing Race isn't really.
I want to watch The Bear.
Yeah. That's like, I'm trying to get her to there. Like, I got her to watch Fargo. It was like
I just finished The Bear a second time around.
It was just like the best moment of my life when she like enjoyed Fargo. I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
You know, I could get her to watch some Peak TV. But there's a show we watch on Peacock called The Traitors, and it's populated entirely by like a who's who of.
Is this about West Virginia's transfers?
Yeah, it's a who's who of most like reality star people. Like, there's Bravo people, Larsa, Pippen, and Marcus Jordan were on it, you know, and like
neat,
you know, like all that. Like, so I was not, but there are people from shows that we have watched her on it. But one of the people on it, until he actually voluntarily left the show because it was stressed him out, which I don't get, but whatever, was Deontay Wilder, who's the heavyweight champion of the world at one point in his life.
At one point,
At one point in his life, which means you make a ton of money, and the prize pot on these things, these things are more for exposure. They're going to get paid anyway. Like, you know, it's a big deal. They can open them up, but like the total prize pot that they could win is $250,000. Now, to everybody in this room and most people watching, like, that's a big deal, you know. But when I'm looking at Deontay Wilder, like, walking around with a $50,000 diamond and gold chain necklace, I'm thinking he's like, well, he's just doing this to like try to find the next career, because, you know, he spent that on that and three other pieces of jewelry.
Yeah, he's fine. He's a boxer. You got to be really dumb with your money to go broke as a boxer when you're a heavyweight champ and you make all the money that those guys make for the pay-per-views and big fights. Yeah, I don't think he's got a money issue.
Exactly. So it's weird to me to be like, okay, and they're on these shows, and I'm sure they get paid decently to be on the show, and the prize pot is something that's just extra. Like, if you actually do win the thing, you get more money. But
there's also a number of B and C and D and F list celebrities that are on there for the attention, and then there's some people that probably do need the money. So, you know, I don't know, but going back to Xavier Howard, he'll be fine, and hopefully he's taking care of his finances, so he's not having to be one of those sad stories that he's selling memorabilia of like his all-pro jersey in 10 years or sooner. But yeah, I think he'll be fine in the long run. Just interested if it's something closer back to home, because then you suddenly have an interest as if you were a Baylor fan with Jalen Petrie on there, and John Weeks is on there, and Graylin Arnold's on there. So they've already got kind of a contingent, two guys in the secondary already. But
yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll take our last break here. We'll come back. The top five. This is 365 Sports.
The President's Day sales event continues at Allen Samuels Dodge in Waco with $10,000 off a great selection of Dodge Durango RT models, one of the sexiest third-row SUVs that drives like a race car. If you don't think that's fast enough for your liking, then come back and look at the 2023 Dodge Durango Hellcat. That's right, the Dodge Durango Hellcat, over 700 horsepower. Speaking of speed, it continues. Last call, Dodge Challengers and Chargers with the big, powerful V8 Hemi engines, SRT guaranteed power and agility awaits you at Allen Samuels Dodge in Waco. One wide-body Hellcat Charger that's plumb crazy in color, and 2 Hellcat Challengers left, one wide-body nostalgic B5 blue, and a non-wide-body Hellcat in collectible plumb crazy. There's also a great selection of Scat Packs, Chargers, and Challengers, as well as the fun-to-drive SXT and GT models. If you like speed, Allen Samuels Dodge is your speed shop headquarters. General Manager CEO Ted Teague. Come out, see the great selection of cars and trucks. Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 coaches poised for a breakout. Thought we'd take a break from the rigmarole of all the legal mumbo jumbo going on. And,
fine by me.
We've talked enough about it, or like, here's a problem, there's a problem. Just talk about some actual coaches, I think, that are on the rise. And some of these, I've talked about before. But number 5, John Sumrall at Tulane. Now, look, he's certainly a coach on the rise. Troy's been one of the better teams in the Sun Belt as he's been the head coach there. He's a defensive genius, really a guy who can do some things. And the reason I think he's poised for a breakout is he's walking into a situation at Tulane where he is taking over Willie Fritz, who built a very solid foundation there. This isn't a Tulane team that's struggling and trying to find the next guy. They found the next guy in John Sumrall, who's stepping into a program that, for all intents and purposes, in the modern era, in spite of NIL and the transfer portal and losing coaches, is established as a winner, and he's able to sell that pretty easily. It's going to be his vision and not Willie Fritz's, but he steps into a really good situation in the group of 5 with a program at Tulane who is trying to win as much as they can and is putting as many resources as they can behind it right now. And I would say in the next couple of years in the 12-team playoff that with John Sumrall, Tulane's poised to probably get one of those group of 5 spot.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, just how the group of 5s are treated, but they would be as strong as candidate as anybody. I mean, given that a lot of the group of 5s have been taken away. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of them in the Big 12 now at this point that would have been on that list. But, yeah, I think Tulane's certainly a spot that you lose Willie Fritz and you're like, oh, no, who's going to follow up what a great run that he had. But I think John Sumrall is a fantastic hire, and I think if you're a Tulane fan, that you're more than pleased with what he's already done in his career and the potential that he has to come to New Orleans and further what Willie Fritz was able to do with all the noise that he made before heading to Houston. So, yeah, John Sumrall, 23-4 in his career. He's got a couple of conference championships, win streaks, big games, talented players, and just a really well-run program there at Troy. So wasn't a long stint there, but made a big impact, and enough that Tulane was like, all right, here's our next guy to follow up the last guy who was pretty dadgum good. So, yeah, I think John Sumrall was a great hire, and certainly a name we'll be hearing a lot more of.
Number 4, Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. What he did at his alma mater, he's stepping into a place where he'll have a lot more resources and a lot less off the, at least, courtroom drama like Oregon State's going to have over the next couple of years. They're trying to figure out where they are. But I just think I love what he does. I love him as an offensive mind. I love him as a quarterback coach. I just think that Michigan State hasn't really had a guy like this in there in quite a while, like including Mark D'Antonio. Like, he is someone who can modernize, the parts of the Big Ten that have not yet been modernized. And I do think that Michigan State made the absolute best hire they could have made. This is a great fit for them. And they may have maybe moved past their back-to-back controversial coaches. And Jonathan Smith is someone I think will do very well in the new Big Ten, especially since he knows a lot about those schools that are coming in to the Big Ten. I think that's a nice little advantage for him, at least as he hits the ground running. And I just think I'm not going to say the sky's the limit for Michigan State, but they're a program that's won it at pretty high levels before, and I think they can do it again with more consistency with a guy who's maybe more in tune to the modern game than they've had.
Jamel Tucker was a disaster when all was said and done. So interesting to see who he got tied up with there, and how he got tied up as far as just the whole way that unfolded, and just what a mess that was. If you're Spartans fans, you're so ready to turn the page, and I don't think you could be any happier about the guy that you got. So, yeah, Jonathan Smith did a great job there in Corvallis. He's going to have Aiden Childs joining him along the way as well. That's one thing I should have pointed out about Summerall is talk about Oregon, the state of Oregon quarterbacks. Summerall got Ty Thompson to join the fray down there in NOLA, but I think Jonathan Smith with his creative offense, it was a lot of fun to watch at Oregon State. Loved what he did with Damian Martinez. Thought Damian Martinez would maybe follow him, and he's just a Texas guy, so I follow him pretty close. That's a great hire. I think easy choice for him ultimately. I know Oregon State fans are bummed, and there's ties and all that, but, the platform being larger, more money, more security, bigger conference, all of that, it seemed like a pretty obvious step up for him, and so he's got quite the challenge. Michigan's better than it's been in 30 years, right? You've got other new minds like Lincoln Riley that's also entering the league, so the Big Ten itself is in for an interesting influx as far as offensive philosophies and just the new booties on the block, and so he'll be a fun addition for sure.
Number 3, Rhett Lashlee stepping into a power conference for however long it is a power conference, but he has done really well at SMU.
Ain't that going to be like if they get in there and then a year later the whole thing falls apart?
For nearly 35 years, they've been wanting this opportunity again.
Yeah,
as a university, as an institution, as a fan base. They've got big money people that's what they want to spend their money on, is right. SMU being good at sports again, particularly football, because they love it. And they miss the Pony Express days. They want it so bad. And then they finally found a way in the door. And then, the rug might get pulled out from under them. That being said, regardless of what happens with SMU and the conference around them, Rhett Lashlee is a dude who I think is on the way up. He comes from the Gus Malzahn tree. He's a really brilliant offensive mind. He's also been able to pair that with an effective defense and complementary football. He can recruit really, really well. And do I think he's going to be at SMU forever? No, I don't. I particularly think if that Arkansas job opens up in a year, that is who they're going to call. He is poised for a huge breakout, not only at SMU, but career-wise. We've had him on the show a bunch of times. Love having Coach Lashlee on the show. Really, really like his football mind and what he's doing and the way that he's approaching the new era of college football and kind of just going at it with both barrels. This is a dude who I think has a very, very bright future wherever he is. And I kind of do hope it's at SMU for a while because I like the idea of the story of SMU being a kind of a fun program again. But if it's not, if it's somewhere else like Arkansas, then watch out. Arkansas might become relevant again.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to dunk on SMU by any means. It's just the odds of finally getting into a power conference and then it being the situation where it is just kind of wild. And so hopefully that works out in their favor. I will say there are a couple of fans that live up to the SMU fan stereotype so much that part of me doesn't want to see them succeed because they are so obnoxious. But Rhett Lashley being on this show and having talked to him a few times does make me ultimately want to see them succeed for his sake and for the players on that roster and the genuine, non-obnoxious SMU fans who really just want to win again and who've been through some really tough years ever since the big blow up there in the 80s and the death penalty and everything that's followed that. So they've made their move. If you're an SMU fan, you got to be super excited, and rightfully so. And you got to be excited for a variety of reasons. Playing in the ACC this year and beyond looks like it's going to be a brilliant move. You're set up really well as far as talent goes and resources, and you're working on facilities, and just everything seems to be kind of lining up for the big push. And they are sitting there as well with one of the biggest pieces and a great head coach. So you went and won the conference last year. That was a great deal. Congratulations to them on that. How do they take it up a notch further, and how competitive can they be in the ACC starting next year? That's a big mystery because we've seen teams like them take a little bit of an adjustment period. Maybe you got to fill out your offensive lines a little bit more, get more guys on the D lines. And so there's that kind of an adjustment. But with NIL in play, and they've got big money backing them, I mean, you can go and fix a lot of problems a lot quicker than you could used to. But yeah, he's a really good head coach. This won't be his last stop, but he can still stand to make a lot of noise there in Dallas and help keep up the return, I guess you could say, of SMU to the more proper ranks in the eyes of their fans.
Number 2, Eli Drinkwitz. Look, Mizzou just had a great year, and guess what? The boosters have rewarded the program with as such. They're going to double down. I mean, Luther Burden getting some money to stay. Luther Burden is a dude that I guarantee you the vultures were circling when he started playing as well as he did. And those same Mizzou boosters were sweating bullets like this big, thinking about like, oh man, we have this guy who may be, and I do think the best all-around offensive player coming back in college football next year is Luther Burden. That's here at Mizzou. How do we make sure he's not at Ohio State or Bama or Georgia or somewhere else next season? Well, they've done that, and Eli Drinkwitz, kind of finally, knocked through the wall a little bit, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Brady Cook worked out for them. But I do think Eli Drinkwitz really, really, really is someone you got to watch, and I think Mizzou, pushing all the chips to the middle of the table this year is going to be a fun watch in the SEC.
Yeah, they should be. I mean, they had a really great year, going and winning 11 games. It's a big deal. It's been a little while since they were able to do that. Took a little while for him to get this thing operating at full cylinders. Got him to bowl games pretty quick, but I mean, to get to 11 wins, that's a significant jump, and a lot of it's the talent level that you talked about. I mean, Brady Cook and Luther Burden and so on and so forth. They've got some stars on that roster, and yeah, how they follow up the Cotton Bowl championship is going to be fun to see because there are now much bigger expectations than there have been at Missouri in a while. Like there was a long time where I think about them kind of like I probably will think about Texas and Oklahoma to some extent, of like you still kind of think, but like they've been gone long enough now that I don't identify them with the Big 12 at all. I have to almost remind myself sometimes that they were in the Big 12. It's kind of weird, but they obviously made a splash early on, went straight to the conference championship game, and then after that, it's been kind of a trudge, and here they are, and a lot of momentum on their side, and we'll see what they can do with it because it's been their best opportunity to really make a lot of noise as they've had in several years. So, he's doing a great job there.
Absolutely. And number 1, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. I think this is going to be an interesting year for Notre Dame. I think Riley Leonard is an upgrade over Sam Hartman, and you guys know how much of a sports crush I had on Sam Hartman as an efficient quarterback, and that didn't end exactly how Notre Dame wanted it to. But I think as their foray, into the let's get a transfer quarterback every year goes, they have certainly upgraded. Now, the problem for Notre Dame this year is just that they've got, at A&M to start out, which I think they're better than A&M, but you never know. Like, what Mike Elko's got going there, and it's hard to tell now with Portal and new coaches and the talent they have coming back year to year what A&M's going to be. They've got Louisville at home. They have Florida State at home, and they play USC on the road. So to get to that playoff level, they've got to beat some pretty good teams, and whether it's at home and the road in some tough places. But I do think with Riley Leonard there and some of the stuff that he's built around already and his defensive acumen and how tough Notre Dame is going to be on that side of the ball, he's a guy who bears watching this year in that I would not be shocked to see in the first year of the 12-team playoff Marcus Freeman have the Irish in there.
All I want to know when it comes to Notre Dame is what Stephen A. Smith has to say. Noted college football expert Stephen A. and Mad Dog. What fiery takes do they have on Notre Dame's place in college football? Saw that stupid video so many damn times yesterday, but no, he's done a great job, and they're on a nice path. Although the path, depending on who you talk to, is a little bit murky, right? I mean, with the automatic qualifiers in the future playoffs, how exactly is that going to work for a Notre Dame? But as we pointed out, they had a major presence in the negotiations of the format and will continue to. And I guess most of the conversation surrounding them is going to be about their future alliance or their future independence and what all that looks like. But, man, he did not take over an easy gig by any means and got off to a very rocky start initially. But he's righted the ship, and, it seems like they've definitely pegged the right guy. And I like him. I think that they're a fun team to watch that's got a long way to go, but I like his presence. I like the interviews that I've seen from him. I can see why guys want to play for him. And, man, that really started off and looked disastrous, initially. But they've really done a great job in not making that be the case and turning that around pretty quick. So, yeah, I think Marcus Freeman's got a tremendous amount of upside and a fun young coach to watch, and we'll see what he does with the Irish. They're not the most, I guess, lovable program in the world, but it's really, for me at least, it's hard not to root for a guy like Marcus Freeman. Absolutely. I like Marcus Freeman. I think that he's one of those guys that a lot of coaches are going to model what they do after, because he kind of gets – he knows how to talk to the youths. The youths. He knows how to put your preconceived notions about what you should say or what you could say and what you do aside, and he can put himself in anybody's world, I think. And I think that's pretty impressive. And look, the Notre Dame job, for everybody who hates it, it's one of the toughest jobs in all of college sports is coaching football at Notre Dame, because even though they haven't won a national title since 1988, every Notre Dame fan wakes up in the morning and thinks it's January 1st, 1989 again. Rudy's still on the roster. They wake up and they're like, all right, okay, Rocky and Ismail, what's next? That's how it is in their head. So it is a very, very tough job because of the expectations. That's going to do it for us today. Everybody have a great weekend. All back in studio on Monday. Thanks to Craig, Garrett, Jack, Emery, all of our guests, Pat and Grayson and Josh, all of you on the chat room, and all of you who watch 365 Sports Tonight here on tonight on the CW, locally in Waco at 10:30. We'll see you on Monday, everybody.